Welcome to the January 7th, 2025 Board of Commissioners meeting. At this time, I'd ask you to please silence your cell phones, pagers, and all other electronic communication devices. Agenda and speaker request forms are located at the back of the chambers, and after those are filled out, I would ask that you return them to Holly Hannes, who's sitting to the left of me here at the dais. At this time, I will call the meeting to order and begin with the individual oath for Mr. Ron Weifenbach, who represents District 2, and for Mr. Jerry Durr, who represents District 4, with Judge Heidi Lindgren presiding. Following the oath of office, we'll take a 5-minute break so that our new commissioners can be congratulated to their new roles of Pennington County and have photo opportunities with families and friends. I will now recognize Honorable Judge Heidi Lindgren.
We're going to go back by the flag.
I was going to say, you guys going to stand by the flag?
Just want to say your districts at the same time.
I can do them at the same time.
We can do it at the same
Just say the
time.
district at the same time.
Perfect.
Test.
All right, raise your right hands, please. I state your name.
I,
I, Jerry Durr,
You solemnly swear
do
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and will faithfully and impartially,
and to the best of my ability,
best of my ability,
discharge all of the duties
discharge all of the duties
of my said office
of my said office
of Pennington County Commissioner
of Pennington County Commissioner,
District 2.
4,
in District 4, and render a true account of all money,
and render a true account of all money,
credits, accounts, and property
credits, accounts, and property
of any kind that shall come into my hands
of any kind that shall come into my hands
as such officer,
as such officer,
and pay over and deliver
and pay over and deliver
the same according to law.
the same according to law.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We're taking a 5-minute break, so go ahead and want to get out there in the middle, shake hands.
Item 3.
Roll call and determination of quorum. At today's meeting, we have a full quorum with no one participating via teleconference means. Moving on to item 4, which is a moment of silence. At this time, I ask that we move to a moment of silence. Reflection and contemplate the last 150 years of our great county's history, including the individuals, past and present, who have dedicated their time and talents to public service, making Pennington County and its communities the unique and resolute places they are today. I will offer a brief history of Pennington County, which was founded 150 years ago and named after John L. Pennington, who was the fifth governor of Dakota Territory, and he held office in 1875 when the county was formed. In 1874, U.S. Army Commander George A. Custer led a group into the Black Hills area. He and some of his officers climbed the crest, which is now called Black Elk Peak, and made a toast to U.S. General William Harney. They named the peak for Harney, and his name was used until 2016. This expedition reported that gold could be found in the Black Hills, which spurred a gold rush into the future county area. By 1875, the mining settlements that sprang up were enough to justify creation of a local governing organization. So Pennington County was created on January the 11th, 1875, and was fully organized by April the 19th, 1877. The county's boundaries were adjusted in 1877 and again in 1898. The county seat was initially Sheridan, a mining camp, which I guess that'd be Sheridan Lake right now, created with hosting the first federal court west of the Missouri River. In 1878, the county seat was moved to Rapid City. In 1929, Don Robinson, superintendent of the South Dakota State Historical Society, began promoting the concept of a giant sculpture carved from a Black Hills mountain. By 1927, this concept took substance when the work on Mount Rushmore began. Shortly after the U.S. entered World War II, an Army training air base was established in Pennington County. It has continued until present, now known as Ellsworth Air Force Base. Supporting this activity has provided a substantial portion of the county's economic base since that time. At this time, I would ask Commissioner Durr to lead us into a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I will welcome our new commissioner members. But before I go, before I move on to the election of officers, the chair and the vice chair, I'd like to congratulate and welcome Commissioners Jerry Durr and Ron Weifenbach, who were recently elected for one 4-year term. Along with this transition, I pray that we can move forward in a positive manner as a team, where bridges are built, fences are mended, and there is full transparency, respect, communication, and professionalism between the fellow commissioners on all matters and issues that involve the taxpayers' employee of Pennington County. And as such, each act accordingly in what they believe in their heart is best for the citizens and taxpayers of Pennington County. As officials and employees, we sometimes forget the true mission statement of Pennington County, which I will read now. The mission of Pennington County, South Dakota is to provide quality public services as determined by the law and citizens' needs through innovative leadership and the teamwork of its people, officials, and employees. Services shall be provided in a fair, respectful, and professional manner consistent with available natural and economic resources. Thank you for your time. Item 7 is to approve today's agenda as presented, and I would look for a motion.
Move
Mr.
to
Chair.
approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments from the audience? Back to the commission. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 8, I will ask the commission if they are okay with a voice roll call vote, as we have a full quorum today. The other option is paper ballots. I'm open to suggestions on how we want to proceed there.
Mr. Chair, I'd move that we vote by roll call.
Very good. Voice roll call. Okay. With that being said, do we want to do a motion on that, Mr. Drews?
Yes.
So can I get a motion for that? Is that
I'll
the
make
motion?
that motion.
Second.
Okay. We got a motion and a second, so all in favor of voice roll call indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. We will now go into the election of officers for chair and vice chair. At this time, I'm going to open up nominations for chair.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Drews.
I would like to nominate or put in nomination Commissioner Weifenbaugh for chair. for the
I'll
coming
second
year.
that motion. I have a first and a second. Any other nominations? If there are no other nominations, I would ask that we do a roll call vote just to make that official for Mr. Weifenbach. Yep.
Durr,
Yes.
Drews,
Yes.
Hadcock,
Aye.
Weifenbach.
Aye.
And Ross Connect.
Aye. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Weifenbach will be the chair.
Before I turn the gavel over to Ron, we'll go ahead and do vice chair.
Thanks, Gary. We'll do good.
Moving on to vice chair. Do I have any-
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Drews,
I would put a nomination Commissioner Ross Connect for vice chair.
and I'll second that. Any other nominations?
You have a nomination. If I can substitute that, it would be Deb Hadcock.
I'll second that.
Okay. With that being said, we'll go to Ron first. Roll call vote.
Durr,
And we're voting on which,
we're voting on
Ross Connect.
Ross Connect first.
nay.
Drews,
Aye.
Hadcock,
No.
Ross Connect,
Aye.
and then Weifenbach.
No.
Okay. With that said, then I congratulate Commissioner Hadcock.
Mr.
Do you want to,
Mrs. Hadcock.
Well, let's go ahead.
take it by vote?
Yeah, we'll do a roll call, excuse me, for Commissioner Hadcock. So
Commissioner
let's
Hadcock.
go ahead and do a roll call.
Okay, so Durr,
Yes.
Drews,
Aye.
Hadcock,
Aye.
Ross Connect,
Aye.
Weifenbach.
Aye.
Very good. Now I'm going to hand the gavel over to our new chair for 2025, and I think we could give Ron a round of applause. We're going in the right direction.
Thank you, and I'm going to take a little moment of privilege here, and I appreciate the opportunity to be the chair. I typically don't take the leadership roles, but in this position, as a commissioner, there's 5 of us here, so there's really no one above us besides the people. And I wanted to extend my thank you to Mr. Ron. He told me earlier, 2 Rons don't make a right. I'm hoping we can make some right here, and I appreciate his comments about moving forward. I think that Being the chair, I want to raise the level of professionalism to be a standard that everybody else in the community can adhere to. I believe that moving forward, we have a few loose ends we're going to tie up. There are coming some ugly loose ends that we need to tie up. But moving forward, we've got a good crew to work with. I've met with a few of you, and for the few of you that I haven't met with, I will be stopping by to meet with you and see what your direction is, what you want to be. If you have concerns or anything along those lines, we're open to that. You come to us, we have an open forum. As Ron had mentioned earlier, about transparency is my number one goal here. Transparency, fiscal accountability. Doing the public's business in the public is very important to me because we do represent, each one of us has a district of people that we represent. So when there's times that we make decisions based upon the citizens, not our own personal opinion. We were elected, but we do listen to the citizens in the community, and that's where we're going to gather our wisdom and our information and making decisions moving forward. I think that we have a good commission here that we can pull together and we can make the right decisions for the county. And once we get the house cleaning things accomplished, we will moving forward, and we will be spending a lot of time working with the people, because it takes a lot of gumption and a lot of interpersonal belief to come to the microphone. So when you come to the microphone, you'll expect the utmost respect from both of us up here, all of us up here, and from you, and we'll have a back and forth, and if we err, we'll err on the side of the public to make that announcement today. And again, I appreciate Mr. Roskineck's little bit of history there. He is the District of Hill City. That's one of his main representations there. If you haven't spent any time up there, they have a lot of history up in that area, and he's volunteered to take me around up there and show me some more of it. And he shared a little bit about Pennington County's history today, which was super fantastic. So that being said, I think I've taken enough of your time, and we'll just move on with the meeting, and we'll probably be some house cleaning items on today and moving forward in the next day, and then beyond that, we will be very directed. We will have limited amount of discussion outside of the agenda items. If it's on the agenda, that's where we'll leave the topic to. We'll try to rail in any outside of that unless it's necessary to get the point across from the public. So, and we'll be looking at our policies and procedures moving forward to see how we can better them for the public. So I appreciate that. And thank you again for the confidence I've been instilled to take on this chair position. So you'll have to bear with me as I get through the agenda today, and I'll get better at it, I promise. And with that being said, we'll move on. And we are on item number 9. Is that? Thank you. So basically, we will read these items in and vote on them, and then we do have a consent agenda. And I'm not sure how we've handled that in the past, but we'll get to that. We'll read item number 9 right now. Determination of the 2025 compensation salary for the commissioners per SDCL 773 and 775.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to make a motion to keep our salaries the same as 2024.
I'd second that.
We've got a second. We've got a motion and a second, so typically, do we just vote and then we can tell? Okay, so any objections or any other comments that want to be made on this item?
No, I'm good.
We're ready to vote, so we'll just ask for a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
What you say?
All in favor, say aye. I'm sorry.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, all opposed? Motion carries. So we'll move on to item number 10, which is the consent agenda. The Board of Commissioners uses the consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine items. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and a vote of the board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. The consent agenda contains the following items, which are A through O. So is there anybody that wants to remove anything from the public, that wants to remove anything from the consent calendar? Okay, anybody from the dais would like to remove anything from the consent calendar?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
motion to approve the consent agenda
We
as
have a
presented.
motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll move on to number 11. This is items from the auditor. It's a 2025 resolution establishing the fees and mileage rate for precinct workers pursuant to SDCL 121511 and 1215.7. The auditor here today, is there anything that you want to add to this, or I'm sure if there's not, if we have any questions, we'll pose them to Cindy. Nobody has any questions on it, so do I get a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. None. Motion passes. Item B, renewal retail on-sale liquor licenses with Sunday Sales, Horse Creek LLC, New Underwood Roping Club, and TK Saloon and Grill.
Chair,
You got a motion?
move to approve the renewal of retail on-sale liquor license with Sunday Sales with release this license upon a payment for appropriate property taxes for the following: Horse Creek LLC, New Underwood Roping Club, and then TK Saloon and Grill.
Okay.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Go to item C, transfer retail on sale liquor license with Sunday Sales and retail off-sale malt beverage and SD Farm wine license, Moonshine Gulch Saloon.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
there's two motions there. I'll go ahead and start with motion one.
Okay. Okay, there is two motions. Okay, motion one is to, okay,
Motion one would be to approve the transfer of retail on-sale liquor license with Sunday Sales from Moonshine Goat Saloon LLC under Moonshine Goat Saloon LLC to Moonshine Goat Saloon under Amanda S. Olson and James Olson.
so we got
Lot of
a,
moonshines in there.
we got a motion, get a second?
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I'll go
Motion.
ahead and do number two.
Thank you.
Move to approve the transfer of retail on-off sale malt beverage with South Dakota Farm wine license from Moonshine Gulch Saloon LLC under Moonshine Gulch LLC to Moonshine Gulch Saloon under Amanda and John Olson.
We got a motion. We get a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Number 12, 2025 Extension Advisory Board. Thank you, Cindy. Advisory Board action member appointments. We get a motion on this item?
So move.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Chair, if I could, is there anybody in the audience from this Extension Board, Patty Bruner, Heather Chambliss, John James, Matthew Auden, and Tyler Myers, that would like to speak on this item today? If not, okay,
If not?
thank you.
We have a motion and a second, so all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 13, items from Human Resources, 2025 elected officials wage policy resolution for county state's attorney consideration of wage adjustment for state's attorney Laura Retzel, I'm sorry. We have any motion on this item?
I would like to have discussion.
You'll get a motion for discussion. We get a second?
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second for discussion, so let's talk about this item here. Somebody want to have some discussion?
I think.
Oh, we got Carol, did you want to visit about this? Okay.
Yes, Carol Bancroft, HR Director for Pennington County. The memo that I submitted is a continuation from the last meeting as far as the analysis that was done per the request and direction of the commission to include as far as benefits comparison, et cetera. So you have in front of you that information. And my recommendation is to move to increase the 2025 annual salary for State's Attorney Laura Retzel to $158,340 effective January 5th of 2025. And then also to move to approve the Pennington County elected officials wage policy resolution for the county state's attorney for 2025. And that motion recommendation is based on the analysis that was done in comparison study, but it also supports the compensation philosophy of Pennington County to make sure that we are being fair and consistent with our compensation. And so for our elected officials, that the state's attorney and the sheriff's positions are both a base salary of $135,000. So in this case, our sheriff as well as our state's attorney have equitable number of years of service with the county and like years of service in the state's attorney position and sheriff's office. So in my rationale, the $158,340 is equitable to what the sheriff's position is compensated at. And I stand for questions.
Thank you, Carol.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Durr.
Laura, could you come up?
Thank you. Do you have a
Good
question
morning,
for Laura?
Commissioner Durr.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I do have a couple questions, Mr. Chairman. So I'm reading, I saw this on the last agenda, and I'm reading both memorandums prepared by you and by Carol. And I just have a couple questions on the timeline. And so, and I did have a conversation with Carol and asked a couple questions yesterday regarding this. So in your memorandum, you state that the commission, the board advised you not to come forward with a pay increase until you were elected. And I have a couple comments on that, and then I'll, let you kind of tell us the history to help us get to that point. So I understand you were appointed in 2023, okay? And so once that, and I hear this often, but once I hear somebody, an elected official is appointed, the appointed title goes away, and at that point in time, you were the state's attorney for Pennington County. So, there was a vacancy, the board made a determination to make an appointment, and, there is no reeling that back in until you go in the next general election, and then that can be decided. And so the county went through a major wage study, with the employees, and spent a lot of time going through the wage and pay grades for the employees. They went through and made adjustments to department heads, and there were some previous adjustments made to elected officials. And so, and maybe my comments are how I would like to see things go forward, but I believe the discussion and the timeline for that pay increase for your position could have been done a year ago. It could have been done during the budget process. And so what I would have liked to have seen is that the discussion about these pay changes be done during the discussion for all the other pay changes when the board at that point in time was hearing the 2025 budget presentations. And so the budget was set for 2025, and then when the resolution comes on December 3rd for the elected officials, then we have a discussion about the wage on that resolution for the state's attorney. And so I kind of had my mind made up as to what direction I was going to go on this, but when I read your memorandum about direction that you had taken from the board, and you said that, the HR director could respond to that communication, so I would just like you to explain what direction you were given by the board and who gave that direction.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Durr. And I think that that's really the only other comment I felt the need to make for today, which is, in my opinion, the third time that I've come in 3 subsequent commission meetings to talk about my request for a wage increase. And in the media that was presented after the last commission meeting, I think that is what got missed, and that's what I did not completely portray to the commission, is the historical piece. So I do want to make it very clear that I was expressly told that I could not bring up the issue of my wages until I was elected. That was expressly told to me by the board chair, Lloyd LaCroix, and that was repeated to me by the HR director during the time, who stands next to me, during the time that all of the department heads were going through their wage study, which is something that I championed for them and wanted for them, just like I wanted the wage study for all of the county employees. And that's why I felt the need to document the fact that literally every other human being in Pennington County, under the employment of Pennington County, was at least considered for a pay increase during the time that I was appointed to the time that I was elected, but me. And it kind of made it seem like I was jumping out of nowhere and saying, hi, I want a raise, and like I was special or like I wanted to be singled out. And that was not the case. It was because I had been pulled out and left out and told that I had to wait to even be considered. Not to be considered during the budget process, not to be considered during the department head wage study, not to be considered at all of the times that I've documented in my letter that the independent elected officials were considered, but to wait. And so I did. And then the first moment that I had the opportunity, I simply raised my hand and said, this is the moment where it says on the agenda for public consideration of the state's attorney's salary, now is the time when it should be considered under public auspices, and I ask that it be considered.
All right. And Carol, is that your interpretation?
I do have a slightly different interpretation that I do not recall ever stating to Laura that she needed to wait. I was witness to the conversation that took place with Laura and Commissioner LaCroix, so I did hear that statement. And I think, from my perspective, that when we did the wage study, that was the direction to all elected officials, is that they not be included in the wage study. It was for Pennington County employees versus elected officials. So in respect, I think that was probably the interpretation where Laura is feeling like she was excluded from that, but that was all elected officials were not included in the wage study.
Okay. Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Commissioner, I believe you made your point. I don't want to get into it. He said, she said, I think that we could go, and I know where you're coming from about, but she's here to get a wage increase. Let's talk about that. And then we knew what kind of led up to it. Is this a position that the commission wants to do or not do? So I'd look for some more communication. If there's some more understanding that we need to get our arms around, I don't think whatever happened in the past is going to make any difference at this point. I think we're at the point that if there is something that we can narrow down, that she can answer the question and we can make a decision. How's that?
Mr.
Unless
Chair.
someone else had something else.
I'd like to make a statement.
Yeah, Mr. Drew, okay.
Thank you. So we have a state's attorney currently that's got 28 years of experience in the state's attorney's office. We, the Board of Commissioners, hired her back in March, I believe it was, April. She took the position April in 2023 to replace a retiring or resigning Mark Vargo. So I understand what Carol is suggesting. She's suggesting $158,340. Laura's requesting about $19,000 more than that, which would bring her up to $177,000. At the $158,000, I look at the comparables, and like even Brookings County pays their state's attorney more than that. Lincoln County is about $15,000 higher than what that would be, if we accepted the HR recommendation. And I think part of the difference is that we do want a state's attorney that's not just a manager of the office, but someone that is active, a very active role in prosecuting serious cases, as she's been doing for decades. I think we hired a prosecutor, and on that, she has also been indicated she wants to be very proactive with her agenda, and she has proven that. Proactive on crime. I believe the salary for the current state's attorney should be above the $170,000 annually.
Mr. Chair.
Chairman.
Mr. Roskinek?
Looking back at Gary, you mentioned 19,000. So when you sit there and look at 19,000, that's taxpayers' money. But is that 19,000? I look at it, are we getting a return on that? And I think we're getting a heck of a return on that 19,000. And you've proven it, and I think you've proven enough market evidence there, just like Gary explained. And I also appreciate Carol's work on this, but I think for what we're getting, $177,000 is worth the taxpayers' money. I really do. If there was somebody else standing there, I might not agree with that, but I think you've gone on and above what I ever expected.
Chairman.
Commissioner Hadcock?
So here's where I'm at. Thank you. I saw your swearing in yesterday on TV. It's pretty cool. First woman to be the state's attorney. That being said, you were just sworn in. I did look up the history on the 158, the 186,000. The people that have been in that position had been in that state's attorney's elected position for many years. So we keep saying, because of your experience and because you're a supervisor or because you were second in charge, it's a lot different than being first in charge. So your experience, what I've been told over and over again, is this is why we give raises. This is why the experience in that position, because if you switch positions, then there's a different amount. Number two, you were basically, to me, you were elected and you were ready to go in June because you had no competition. So at that time, the budget was being done, things were being done where you're the department head chair that could have happened, where you move forward. Every other elected official and otherwise did put in their raises and put in their amounts, even some of them when they were appointed. So for you to wait, I appreciate it in one sense. In the other, Chairman LaCroix is not five of us, he's one. So you listened to someone, you did a budget, and I guess for me, I would have asked the questions before and then also put it in my budget, and then those questions should have been asked then. I'm not against you getting a raise, I'm against trying to change a budget and absorb it again into somebody's budget when it should have done a while ago. You also went from 117 to 142,506, which is a $25,000 raise in 3 years. That's a lot of money. And then to add not only to 158, but add another 19. I'm not against in your budget coming in next year and putting in and showing what you've done as the leader of the state's attorney. But at this time, I'm going to say I've done this before. Ask Cindy Moeller. It was done up front. We did not give her a raise. She got elected the first year, and then we decided that because of Cindy Moeller's position, her leadership, that Cindy Moeller got moved up. So that's all I'm asking is that you wait, you get your 142.5, and then put it in your budget next year, which is the process in which we do business in Pennington County. And then up front, you say, I put this in my budget. You guys told me to put it in my budget. I'd be ready to move forward. But today, because of that, not being in your budget and to absorb 40-some thousand, I don't think is a very responsible taxpayer thing to do. I think as a leader, we just showed today that going to the next step or getting a raise is not everything. It's showing your leadership and who you are and what you're going to do for the future. What you've done in the past is going to be different than you being the leader for me. So for me, I think the 142,506 for that reason, not because I don't think you're amazing state's attorney or what you're moving forward. I'd like to see what you can do and what you have done as the leader before I decide to go past a 25,000.
Commissioner Hadcock, is that a motion then?
Yes, sir.
Or
To
the
leave it at
motion would say-
142,506, sir.
Is there 142,506, is there a second? Motion dies for a lack of a second. Guys, I'd like to not reiterate how we got to this position. There's been some confusion on it, we've had some confusion on some of the raises that took place, so I would assume we stick to the merits of the question that Larry's asking, and if we can get a motion on the table, and we'll discuss if there's a specific number, or if we don't want to do anything or whatever, then let's go that direction.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to go ahead and make the motion of 177,217.83 for Laura's new salary
There's a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
A motion is second
for discussion.
for discussion.
Okay. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the reason I asked those questions is because Laura put that in her memorandum, which was kind of new information as far as what I picked up from the last meeting.
And so I agree, I don't like the timeline, but I can understand why you're standing here in front of us now in a new fiscal year, got carried over asking for, pay raise. And so, it would have been good to see it during the budget process, but I understand how we got here, and I appreciate, your insight that you put in there. So my point on this is I would like to follow the HR's recommendation at the same level as the sheriff's position at the 158 and change. And then if we need to evaluate these as we make the next resolution for the elected officials, then we look at that during.
Would that be a motion?
Yes, that's my substitute
Would it be
motion
a substitute motion?
to recommend the HR's
Do
recommendation.
we have to eliminate the first motion first, or can we do a substitute?
No, but I have the option to withdraw that motion.
Okay.
And at this time, listen to the dialogue and stuff, I will withdraw the motion that I made earlier.
Okay, so the first
I'll
motion.
withdraw
has
my
been
second
withdrawn,
then.
And we have a new motion we have a new motion for
The HR's recommendation at 158, 340.
And I'll second that motion.
okay. We got a motion and a second? Any discussion on that motion? All
You
in
guys have
favor?
effective dates?
Pardon?
Do you guys have effective dates for this?
It would be beginning of this fiscal
Would be,
year.
I think it's written as effective date of January 5th.
Okay, can you
Correct.
add that to your motion?
Pardon?
Can
Yeah,
you
we'll
have
add
them
that to the motion.
the motion?
I think, just to clarify, the motion to increase the 2025 annual salary for State's Attorney Laura Retzel for 158,340, effective January 5th, 2025.
Chair, I have discussion on that
Okay,
motion, please.
yeah, go ahead.
So, Ms. Laura, how much of a raise is that, you guys, then, total? What's the amount that we raised her from
What is the current salary now then?
140?
142,506 is the current salary.
So 142 to 158.
Okay, so you're getting, what, a 30-some $1,000 raise? Long story short, do you have that in your budget?
Absolutely.
Okay, and where do you have it in your budget by
I
chance?
would have it in the salary line. I am short 2 attorneys presently and 1 secretary. We have staff that we're constantly looking to fill, and we have fluctuation in our salary line all the time. As I've repeated, I run a very tight budget. I gave back $1 million in my first year and $500,000 in my second year. The trials that go and don't go, the salary that we don't use and do use, it's hard to strategize with a $7.5 million budget. So I will be able to absorb that small amount.
I appreciate that, but I think I said it at last meeting. That's a lot to absorb, and to see what has been absorbed in the last 3 years, I'm not in favor of that. I've seen almost $12 million absorbed, and I think it's from using unused FTEs, and then we're doing it again this year. So for that reason, not because I don't think you do a good job, but I think it should have been in the budget, and there should have been more discussion with the commission during budget, and hopefully moving forward, we can do that in the future.
Thank you. And so we got a motion and a second, and as read into the, I just want to make one comment, because the security and the safety, public safety, security within our community is of the utmost importance to me, and I think every commissioner around here, we have a lot of confidence in you, Laura, and you have high expectations. I don't think anybody ever minds giving anybody a raise and paying them what they're worth. It's just the fact that we will get down to accountability, and we'll build those bridges, and as Ron Ross Connected mentioned earlier, we will be building bridges, and we will not be tearing bridges down, and we'll move them forward, and I think this will be appropriate, so we will vote. Is there any more discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr.
Just
Bruce.
one clarification.
Sure.
I think this would be about a $16,000 absorption, not a $30,000 one.
Okay. Yeah, because I think she's currently at 140-something, so I see where you're coming from. And I see where Alderman Hadcock's coming from, but we're not going to discuss that. We're going to discuss the fact that we're going to give her this raise or not. So if no other discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
So 1 opposed, motion carries. So move on to the next item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Okay, we are on,
10A,
thank you, sir.
I think.
2 Rons do make it right, by the way. He's up here correcting me, telling me what I got going wrong here, so. Items from the Highway Department, that's the master.
Is there a motion 2 on 13?
Oh, I'm
To
sorry.
approve the elected officials' wage policy.
Yep, there was
Yeah, we
another
did.
motion here for, move to approve Pennington County elected officials' wage policy resolution for county state's attorney for 2025. I'm assuming those go hand in hand, is that correct, Carol? With, move to approve the Pennington County's elected officials' wage policy resolution for the county state's attorney. Thank you, Carol. Go ahead and speak.
Yes, I apologize. Carol Bancroft, HR Director for Pennington County. Yes, those two motions do go together so that the resolution then for the
Thank you.
state's
Okay, so
attorney
do we have a,
position
do we have
is
a motion,
correct.
guys? We have a motion from Hadcock. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Durr. Any discussion on that item? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. I'm sorry.
What is, I'm sorry about
That was just the house cleaning on this,
The resolution
First
on the
motion.
wage policy
Does it have the new wage on it?
for elected officials, yes.
Does it have her?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll be saying
her
no.
new, yeah, okay, so.
So I didn't make, I
No.
don't want to make the motion, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry. You'll have to have somebody else make the motion,
Okay,
because I'm
that's
on the
fine.
opposing side.
We'll-
So move.
So moved by Durr,
Second.
second by Roskinek, and any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Got one no, so motion carries. Okay, we'll
Thank
move
you.
on, now we'll move on to item 14.
Yeah,
Thanks for bearing with me, guys. I'm trying to move the meeting along, and I
good.
got a little ahead of myself. Items from the Highway Department, Rural Access Infrastructure Funding Award. So I guess, Joe, you want to give us just a synopsis of what's happening there?
Yes, Joe Miller, Pennington County Highway Superintendent. Brief synopsis of the Rural Access Infrastructure Fund. This is a fund that towns and townships put together, went to the legislature, and I believe it was House Bill 1159, I believe is what it states in your memo there, in 2020. They went to the legislature and got this funding allocated through the state. Then it was put onto the burden of the counties, and then put onto the highway superintendents or the highway departments to basically administer this funding program. To date, we have not had any any townships apply for this funding. Every year when we send out our 5-year budget or our 5-year plan to the townships, we have all this information in there. I've had conversations with a couple of our townships. To date, we've not had any applications from townships to apply for this funding. The county has applied last year and again this year to utilize this funding. We're one of the unique counties of the 66, and we have unorganized territory that we can use this funding and secondary roads that we can use this funding on. So that's why we're elected to, or we're applying. We applied for this funding in October, and now we are awarding it per the state statute. It has to be awarded by January 15th. To date, we've received $403,000 over the last 3 years. The first year was $50,000 to go and do the inventory. We elected to do that inventory in-house. We had an individual go out and measure culverts, take pictures, do all that rigmarole to get to the infrastructure submitted to the state. And then the following year, they used that inventory to allocate the sum of money that the legislator set aside for this rural access infrastructure funding program. So with that, that's kind of a brief history. The funding that we're looking for this year to award goes to Southside Drive, 227th Street, and then 171st. I believe there's two structures on 171st, one on 227th, and one on Southside Drive. The funding for this is $223,000 grant, so.
Any questions from the
Chair.
audience? Yes, sir. Jerry Drews.
So, Joe, I just want to go into a little bit of depth on this so that the commission has an idea of what direction they would like to go during this legislative session. The Rural Access Infrastructure Fund, Towns and Townships Association, is asking that that be funded to the level of about $5 million, with that $5 million being taken from the current local road and bridge funds. And wondering how you feel relative to having that money transferred over to the RAFE fund.
I guess my opinion is our townships in Pennington County haven't utilized it to date. We've been able to utilize it. But again, we could utilize that funding with it in our road and bridge and not have to go through the burden of applying to the county commission and then awarding it. We could utilize that funding much more efficiently have we not have to go through this program.
Mr. Chair, follow-up?
Yep, follow up.
So you've been very creative in being able to utilize these funds, since we have not had any townships step forward. I don't know how it operates necessarily over in the eastern part of the state where most of the area is, organized by townships. But it appears to me that if towns and township organization would get their way with this, of removing that funding from the local road and bridge fund, that it would cost Pennington County some money. This year, if that bill was passed, which they say they're going to introduce, it would reduce our amount of funding by $219,000. And in 2025, we're scheduled only to get back $108,000 if it went through the RAFE funding mechanism. So it appears to me that it's a loss for us, and you're saying that the convenience of it and the use of it is not necessarily as clear as being able to use the road and bridge fund. So I would think that we would be opposed to allowing the legislature to move forward on that, or encourage the legislature to not move forward on that.
If I may.
Yep.
I believe that would be a wise move on Pennington County's behalf to oppose that legislation going forward. I've talked to a couple of the other highway superintendents. We actually have a meeting with our executive board on Thursday to discuss this very topic and how the rest of the state feels, the rest of the highway superintendents in the state feel about the bill moving forward. And I would assume, I don't want to speak for them, but I believe that they're going to have the same opinion.
Okay, thank you.
I think, Mr. Miller, if you could put together an email or something and forward it to us, that kind of directs us on this a little bit so we can make sure that we're prepared for that in the future. So, any more discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yep. Mr. Bruce?
I would make a motion to award
Get this.
rural access infrastructure funding to Pennington County Highway Department for Southside Drive, small structure 52-4595-3365, 227th Street, small structure 52-6089-2765, 171st Avenue, small structures 52-7078-2652, 52-7079-2732, and 52-7079-2731, in a not to exceed amount of $223,200.
We got a motion, we got a second?
Did you miss a number?
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion on this item? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. We'll go to authorization to purchase equipment. So, Mr. Miller, just give us a short synopsis of what you're doing there.
Okay, if I may, I'll just go a little bit back in history here. When I came on board in 2018, it seemed like we had a plan for everything, right? Our roads, our bridges, our gravel roads, pretty much everything we had a plan for, but we did not have a plan for equipment purchase plan going out into the future. It seemed like it was a year-by-year budget item. So we put together in 2019 a plan, a 10-year plan, which we've updated that twice since then, just on ongoing needs and whatnot in the county. So we put together that 10-year plan, which I believe was approved by the commission back in October, which it's also attached in the agenda there for your review. This year, we are looking to purchase a 2026 Freightliner 108 SD Plus for $133,022 using Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing. This truck is actually going to be a replacement for a 35-year-old 4x4 snowplow. As you can imagine, in the hills, we have a lot of need for four-wheel drive plow trucks, and there's just not a lot of four-wheel drive heavy-duty plow trucks out there on the market. This is one that we've found. Most of our trucks are now Freightliners. They're actually the 112 SD platform, which is a tandem axle truck. This is a single axle truck with four-wheel drive front axle. The next up is three new 2025 Ford F-350 pickups for a total of $205,293 from Lamb Motor Company via the state bid contract. These pickups are to replace our current Foreman pickups out in the outer divisions. We have three 2017 Ford pickups that those individuals currently drive on a daily basis to go out in the mornings and check roads, much like this morning, we had snow. They utilize our road cameras, and then they go drive the roads to check the conditions to make sure they need to send out our plow trucks to remove the snow and sand. So these pickups need to be reliable. They're over 150,000 miles. I think one's actually close to 200,000 currently. With those three that they're replacing, those will get passed down to the crew pickups in their respective positions or divisions, excuse me. Those pickups will replace some of the 6 that we've lost over the last couple of years. And then the last item here is 2 new Caterpillar CW16 pneumatic rollers or rubber tire rollers for a total of $228,890.80 using Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Contract. These are necessary to replace 32-year-old obsolete rubber tire rollers in our fleet. They're very old. We've already had to replace one engine in one of these, and to source that engine was very difficult. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Mr. Chair,
Yep, Mr.
and this is probably for the new commissioners, Joe. When you said equipment plan, didn't we go back 4 or 5 years ago and have a pretty detailed plan for road graders so that we do not exceed 7,000 hours and keep the warranty?
Correct, that is correct, Ron. The motor graders are the centerpiece of our fleet. They're the highest dollar amount. They're about a $400,000 piece of equipment. We have 10 of those in our fleet. And before I started, they had a pretty large repair bill on one of our motor graders that was just barely in warranty. And had it been out of warranty, it'd have cost the county about $150,000. So that's when we sat down with the commission at that time and came up with a plan to keep all of our motor graders under 7 years and under warranty. So basically, we just, tomorrow or Thursday, we'll take delivery of our 2025 motor graders. So we do 2-1-2-1 to keep those under warranty. And it's been a good program, and I'm happy to say after we get the 2 new motor graders, we'll have all of our motor graders under warranty, which lessens the liability to Pennington County.
So the vehicles that you're talking about now, we're going to formulate some kind of a plan going forward with not just the road graders, but other pieces of equipment for the county.
Yeah, we went through we appointed a new shop foreman in June of this year. And we sat down with him and went through our entire fleet again, and that was the reason that we put the equipment purchase plan back in front of the commission. Back in October, we looked at basically anything that was over $50,000 that we would have to go to bid for, and we detailed that out for 10 years.
Thanks, Joe.
Chairman.
Commissioner Hadcock.
So number one, there is a 6-year plan on your paper, and I appreciated that. And we've seen this every year since you've been in charge, Joe. You've done a great job of showing us not only the plan today, but in the budget and how that's working as well. So I do apologize to Sheriff Mueller because I had him do this for his item J, K, and L and got past that and went whoops. So I apologize, Sheriff Mueller, on that because you had that presentation and I forgot. Being excited moving forward on where we're going today. So sorry about that. If you could still send us that would be well appreciated. But if you look at your paper, commissioners, it does say throughout this packet a 5-year, it's not even 5-year, it's a 6-year plan. And I've always liked the detail that has been in your presentations, Superintendent Miller. It breaks it down for us, and it also shows if the public looks at this packet, they know what your plan is, what your plan was, why those vehicles need to be replaced, not because you just need new vehicles. So I appreciate that. And again, Sheriff Mueller did the same for us. So I apologize that I did not bring that forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hadcock. Any more discussion on these items? I'd just like to say one thing. I visited your shop over there, and you can pretty much eat off the floors over there, and the guys work hard on keeping the equipment. This is a great way to handle future purchases, so, no further discussion, so.
I'll make a motion.
We'll make a motion on number, we're gonna have three of them, so, if you make a motion, and we got a motion on the first one?
Okay, my motion would be the authorized highway department to purchase one 2026 Freightliner 108 SD truck plus from Lloyd's Truck Center, Rapid City, South Dakota, in the amount of $133,022 from the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Contract 032824DAI.
We have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, so any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, was there some discussion? No?
No.
Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. We have another one here for another
I'll
purchase.
go ahead and do number two.
Thank you.
Move to authorize the highway department to purchase three new 2025 Ford F-350 pickups off the state of South Dakota bid contract 17619 from Lamb Motors Company, Oneida, South Dakota, for a total cost of $205,293.
Any discussion on this motion? Or a second, I should say. We got a second, so any discussion? No discussion, all in favor, say aye.
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 I'll go ahead and do the
Opposed,
last
same
one.
sign. Okay.
Move to authorize highway department to purchase two new 2025 Caterpillar CW16 pneumatic rollers from Butler Machinery Company, Rapid City, South Dakota, in the amount of $228,890.80 from Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Contract 060122-CAT.
Got a second, so any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. We're on to item number 15. Okay, this is a time for the public. Speaker request form is required. A time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the Board of Commission on policies and issues affecting county government and its function. Action will not be taken during this section on any issues brought forth that are not properly noticed. Speakers under this section will be recorded in the minutes by the name and area of interest. So with that being said, I believe we have two public request forms here. And let me see, on number 15. So the first one would be agenda item, says, I'm sure it says Brad Doer. And it was, the person requesting to speak is Barb Bisbee. Okay, so Barb, if you want to come forward and state your piece here, and we'll listen. I don't see the agenda. So, yeah, this is just a public comment, correct, so. And Barb, when you get forward, if you just announce your name and where you're from, we'd appreciate that. And thank you.
Hi, Barb Bisbee. You guys approved a conditional use permit last month, and I don't know why you did, I don't understand why the people can just skip there and lie about it. You guys don't check any of that stuff out, or?
What was the
Can I talk
condition?
to you? Okay, let me just read this.
Okay.
This is about the use permit that was approved at 22550 Palmer Road, Brad Dorr. My name is Barb Bisbee, and I live at 22551 Palmer Road. I live across the road from Brad Dorr. I have two properties, lots. I wanted to cease and desist the decision you made because, one, Brad lied to the commissioners. We did not vote to dig another well, and we do not go by the water rights from 1984. Palmer Water Association changed this so people could get a conditional use permit, could not get a conditional use permit like they tried before. Belle Palmer is still alive, and her husband and her made the covenants for the Palmer subdivision. Two, the change in the character of the neighborhood. Three, the visual disturbance of the VRBO negatively impacts the visual character of the area, preceded by the neighbors. I've lived there for 30 years longer than Brad, and why do I have to look out my picture window and see a VRBO? And four, the increase in traffic because of extra vehicles going to the property, dumping of waste materials and water trucks a couple times a week. Five, noise pollution and smell from diesel trucks pumping and hauling waste. Six, reduced property values, especially empty lot. If this is allowed, you're setting a precedent for the neighborhood. I did not receive a letter of intention with my notice of a public hearing. His plans are to eventually sell a large house and live in the VRBO. Can he do that? I mean, it's not subdivided. And can you make the meetings so I wrote a letter and it was never read at the hearing. In 2010, we changed the water rights which Brad signed in 2021. The water bylaws say that this can only use this residence for any private, domestic, and residential use, and not for non-domestic purpose. Non-domestic purpose are defined as the use in a business, trade, service, commercial, and industrial purpose that require customers, employees, agents, or others to travel to the owner's lot. Finally, at the end of the hearing, 2 county commissioners said as long as the Water Association is okay with this, they would approve it. We are not okay with this. I please hope you could decide to cease and desist this decision.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
Ma'am, was this approved by the Planning Commission, or was it planned by this commission?
Planning.
Okay.
Okay, so-
I would
yeah,
recommend
Yeah,
that
I think-
planning and zoning
Right.
work with this.
yeah, I think that what we do, Barb, I think I got your email address on here.
Okay.
And we'll send you an email and give you some direction on this. We're not real familiar, we went through the planning commission, so we'll have a discussion with them over there and we'll get back to you. I'm assuming that since it was a use on review, that there was a time frame that everybody was noticed. I don't want to get into all that, but we'll send you an email, we'll follow up. You got my word on that.
Thank you
All right,
very much.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Barb.
The next one, we have Travis Lassiter. And state your name and where you're from, Travis. We all know you, but.
Travis
somebody
Lassiter,
in the
former
audience might-
commissioner. I used to be out of New Underwood, just finished moving down, well, roughly finished moving down to Buffalo Gap. But as a former commissioner, I wanted to come up here and put something out there that I felt that was kind of ignored whenever I was on the commission. 2 times there was complaints against commissioners, either by staff or other individuals that I think we should have a policy, or you guys should have a policy. I'm not up there anymore, so it's kind of nice being on this side, just so you know. But you should have a policy whenever there's a complaint that gets an elected official, or even you guys, an official complaint, so that it's handled the appropriate way. I served 21 years in the Air Force. 4 years of that time, I trained security forces and did investigations. And during the investigation of at least one of those complaints, I found a lot of anomalies that were more subjective rather than objective. And if you're making a determination or the end result based on subjective versus objective, you're coming to the wrong conclusion. So I'd encourage this board to take up a new policy, or at least evaluate a policy, and if there's any complaints, so that the process can go the right way and it takes politics out of it. I feel like there could have been a lot of politics in play whenever you're making a decision based on subjective information rather than objective information. And that's about all I have to say on that one. If you have questions, by all means, I'll be available when you take your break. If not, then there you go.
We appreciate that, and we appreciate your time on the commission.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Travis, could you stick around for the next agenda item?
Yes, I'm going to comment on the next.
Okay.
one. Yep.
Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of public comment. No other public comments, so we'll close that. And we'll go to item number 16. Do we don't need to make a motion to close public comment, or do we?
I don't think
No.
so.
Okay, so we'll go to item 16. And item 16 is United States Department of Agricultural new federal rules requiring electronic identification tags. So the resolution in opposition to mandatory electronic identification tags, livestock tags, and this is continued from 12/17/2024 Board of Commissioner meetings. So do we have a motion so we can just get some discussion going? So I think we're all familiar with the resolution that's on the table. I'm sure that there's some commissioners here that want to maybe voice their opinion or
Chairman, I'll speak.
Commissioner
So
Hadcock.
at the last meeting, we had people speak as well, and it's not that they're against IEDs or tags, it's that the government's making it mandatory. So for smaller business, ag people, this becomes a problem when they have to do it for cost and basically effectiveness. And then there's some issues moving cattle from, like for the fairgrounds and other areas, and bringing them in and telling people they have to tag their vehicles with IAD because it's mandatory. There's a lot of younger people that this is going to affect, that do bring their cattle and their basically livestock across the state over to here. So there's some issues with this, and I think when government makes something mandatory, and it's not efficient and effective for the, in this case, the ag community, I think it should be in a resolution that we are not opposed to IED tags. We are opposed to government overreach and making them mandatory. And
Mr.
that's
Chair.
what was spoke at
ahead.
at the last meeting as well. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you,
I've looked
Commissioner
at this
Hancock.
real hard,
Commissioner.
and when you really read it all, I think Gary can expand on this more, that this policy, there's a policy already in place that kind of regulates this. I don't feel it's the county's responsibility to take a stance on this particular resolution one way or another. I think the industry itself can take care of itself. If we did make our position on one side, then, then we're going to be facing the other side. I think we ought to stay neutral.
Thank you. And we have some more comment, but we do have some people that want to come from the audience, so let's hear what they have to say. And the first one would be Brittany Blair. Is Brittany here? Britton, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, I can read it now. It looks like the pen's smudging. I'm sorry.
I wrote it kind of bad.
All right, I apologize for that, but if you just want to state your name and where you're from, Britton, and then your stance.
Yeah, Britton Blair from Sturgis, South Dakota, and I've used EIDs. I guess I'd start out by, I ship hundreds of cattle out of state every year, and I know how the laws work, and I've used EIDs. I've had every cow on the ranch EID'd for the last 5 years, and for me, it just speeds up my deal versus reading a metal tag, or I can just scan it real fast. And, the beef industry, the USDA in 2013 mandated that cattle have to be identified with a metal clip. All the USDA is trying to do now is bring it into the 21st century and use a EID that can be scanned quickly versus something that has to be read. So really the law is not changing at all. It's just about how we can increase the commerce of the beef industry. And I would agree that, it's not really a county issue at all and more of an industry issue.
Chair.
And if you have any questions about how they work or what they are, I can answer them.
I think we do have a question here from
So
Commissioner
Britton,
Hadcock.
So I had talked to other bigger cattle industry people as well, and they weren't opposed to the tags, but it's the smaller ones that are having an issue that they have to be mandatory. That if they couldn't track their cattle, and you said it, if they couldn't track their cattle with metal tags or they couldn't track it by the brand, why would you have to mandate something to a smaller, like 6 cows or other cattle, just for the cost of it? So what they're saying is they're not against it, they just don't think it should be mandatory if you don't have amount of cattle that it's really gonna affect. And most of the people that are saying this are people that have, they're either coming across from Nebraska, or they're coming across from somewhere else for fairgrounds, so they have to have a IED tag or EID tag, and other stuff. So what I'm saying is we're not against this. The resolution just says it shouldn't be mandatory because it will affect, and that's who I talked to, are the smaller cattle people, because the ones that were bigger said they don't care either way. But they also, one of them came up here he's a cattle producer, and he's a bigger cattle producer. He agreed that it didn't need to be mandated for everybody. It should be something that if you couldn't track it, like you just said, by the metal tags and the branding, and that there was a safety factor or anything like that, then it should be mandatory. And that's the reasoning behind, I believe, that this is put on the agenda today.
So there's just an explanation, not really a question, right? So we're staying, right?
Well, I wanted to know, Britton,
Right.
that what the conversation you missed was mostly the eastern part ag producers that I have talked to.
Is there something that you wanted to?
Well, I mean, right now you're mandated to have a metal, and it goes to EID. The cost of the metal, you can get them free from the state, the metal tag, as well as the EID. If you can't get them free, I suppose the metal tag costs $1 and the EIDs cost $3. So I don't think it's like a huge financial burden. And another misinformation is that, you have to own this reader that costs $2,000. Well, you don't have to own a reader to do it. You can just put the tag in that has a legible number, and you're not required to own a reader. So I don't think it's going to put an undue burden like people think it will.
All right.
So Britton, maybe because I'm old school, that putting something electronic is not always efficient and as effective as something else that we think sometimes. So we found that out on many things. So some of that might be some of that as well for the smaller ones, and learning that process when something's already efficient and effective. So I'm not disagreeing with you, Dave, one sense and the other. For you, it might be simple, and other people, that process, because you're used to it and you have a major company, it might be a little bit more simplified. But to mandate it, for me, I'll keep saying, you guys are protected, they're protected, there isn't any reason why there's a mandatory EID on it.
Commissioner Hancock, I think the point's been made. So is there anybody else that would like to speak to Mr. Britton? I do have a couple other speaker requests for him, so.
One more thing,
Okay, go ahead.
if we have a disease outbreak in the United States, the policy of most states is no cattle in or out of the state until the issue is resolved. Say we have foot and mouth disease. And to me, if EIDs can speed it up by even one day, that we can get back to business as usual, it's worth it.
All right, thank you. And our next speaker,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Britton.
Florence Thompson. If you'd come to the podium and state your name and where you're from, and then it says you're in support, so we're going back and forth to pose support, so
Okay.
the last one will be support.
My name is Florence Thompson. I'm representing South Dakota Citizens for Liberty right now, but I'm also a longtime member of South Dakota Stock Growers and RCAF USA, which is Ranchers and Cattlemen's Legal Action Fund. It's a national organization that supports independent cattle producers and sheep producers. And I've been to many, many meetings and conventions, and EID tags is one of the information items at every one of these meetings. It's a huge issue for the cattle industry. This is not, it's an issue between local control, independent control of your business, and global, national control. What happens is once they digitize all the cattle, digitize all the ranches, the operation, the locations, then they can be managed and controlled. And that's what's being done in Europe. They're forcing the Irish to sell like half their cattle to meet global climate goals. So that's what happens with this digital control. The cattle are tagged, but so are the ranchers, basically. Each ranching location has a number. And you cannot move your cattle from one ranch to another, even if they're both your ranches, without entering all that information in the system. And if you lose your number, if you don't get approved, if your ranch doesn't have a number, then you cannot sell cattle. And basically, they just cut them off. And that they can use, the approval system can be anything they want. Once they have the system in place, then rules and regulations can be applied. And then they will be climate-type rules. That's what's happening in Europe. That's what's happening everywhere they can get this system into place. That's why we're fighting to keep it out. As to whether it's effective, the metal ear tags are not lost. And the regular RFID ear tags are lost easily. And you say people at the sale barns, they find them laying around on the ground. So, and every time you have to replace one of those, it's an expensive process. It's about $100 to get it all relicensed or whatever. When they did have a disease outbreak in South Dakota, they had some tuberculosis, and they tracked it easily with the regular methods, with the hot brands. That was easily done, and there was no problem at all. It was very quick. And this idea that the electronics is so much more accurate, well, if you've ever worked with your computer out in the cold, with your gloves on or whatever, or with your hands wet, or when it's extra hot or whatever, you lose the darn thing. There's a lot of problems that come with electronics. And the system goes down when you're in the middle of something, too bad. You know, you're not going to get all of your whatever processed. So it's not a foolproof system, and it's not necessary. The only thing it's necessary for is control of those ranchers, and control of their cattle, and control of our food supply.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson.
So that's why we're asking our counties, because they're close to the people, they're close to the ranchers and the producers. We're asking our counties to just give us some moral support on this, because it's the little guy versus the big guy. And what we have seen in our country, we've seen almost, the cattle industry is the last industry left that hasn't been taken over by the big packers and big regulation. So we still have 20%, I think it is. We have 80% of our cattle market is controlled by the big packers. So we only have 20% really of our independent ranchers and farmers left, and they're going fast. So we're asking you to just give us a little bit of moral support here as individuals and as independent business people. And as I think the ranchers are the backbone of this area and really the backbone of the West. And it is a dying breed. And we're just asking you to help us hold out.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Your point's been made. The next speaker we have is Travis Lassiter. So you weren't getting out of here that early.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'll just put a couple of things out there. First and foremost, once this went into effect in October of this year, there was a lawsuit filed in the U.S. District Court of South Dakota asking the court for an order to vacate the EID final rule and permanently block USDA's Animal and Plant Inspection Service, APHIS, from enforcing the rule and requiring producers to use the EID radio frequency identification tags, the RFID tags. That's important because now that's something in the state already going on. There's a lawsuit for that. Secondly, 4 counties have already come out with a similar resolution against it to show support for the cattle independent ranchers. I'm here as an individual cattle rancher myself. I'm a member of RCAF, Stock Growers, and so I was the one who originally brought this last meeting as one of the sitting commissioners. But I'm going to point out something about some of the conversation, and this is from the final rule in the PDF. I hope you all got a chance to read it, because the reason why it was kicked to this meeting is because so y'all could have an opportunity to read that final rule. But something that was written in there that I think is important, and this comes from the comments that went into it, and then it's APHIS's response. And if you have it before you, it's page 15. A commenter stated that the EID tags would not be enough to help control a potential FMD outbreak, and that prevention should be the first line of defense. I'm going to agree with that, because just because you have an outbreak, it doesn't mean just because you can identify cattle. I mean, you can identify my cattle with my ear tags. You can identify my cattle with my brand. So if you're looking for a ranch, you can identify them pretty darn quick. But APHIS agreed with that commenter and saying APHIS agrees that a response to FMD in the United States would require a multifactual approach, as explained by Dr. Clifford's 2009 testimony before Congress. So this is the first step to get something in, and then it's going to be something else, because it's got to be multi, okay? So if we're talking about letting this slide because, well, it's an ear tag, so we'll let that slide. Well, now you've set the stage. One thing got in. Now the next thing's going to come in. The next thing's going to come in. The next thing's going to come in. I have a problem with it. I have a 3-year-old bull that I moved from land to land to breed different cattle because of how my place is set up at, I've got a friend up in New Underwood, plus my place down in Buffalo Gap now. And so now I'm going to have to do all this stuff just to move it from one place to another, just to breed the cattle that are on my land. Or if I decide to go across to Nebraska with my cull cows and get them butchered down there because I can get them butchered faster than up here, you're just adding more stuff for small producers to do it. Yes, you're right. Federally, it's already mandated. But the county and the state should take a position to say we support our individual cattle producers, and we don't feel like this is something that's not going to prevent what you want it to prevent, because you're already telling us in your final rule that there's more layers that have to be utilized to do that. And if you're saying that, well, this helps do it right now, in the rule, if you read through it too, it also says you have to have 70% compliance. We don't have 70% compliance to make a difference either. So just keep that in mind before you make a decision on this, and support your small producers is what I'm asking, and uphold or vote for this resolution for Pennington County. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lassiter. Any comments from the dais, like a motion maybe, or something we can get rolling here?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, a couple comments. So I did speak to some of the producers that I know in my district, and they do oppose this new mandate. And primarily, the reason for opposition is that it's, mandated, and there's not enough money to fund the program. And so then that puts the cost back onto the producer. I did speak to Senator Mike Round's office yesterday, spoke to Jim Selchert. Senator Rounds has taken an official position to oppose this. And Jim Selchert's kind of comments were the same, kind of another federal mandate without the funding to go down. And so I understand getting involved at the local level, and, and again, Travis, that was a lot to read with just getting this, to go through for me anyway on Friday and looking at this. And what I would like to do is move this resolution to the first meeting in February. And I would like to work with Holly. We took what Jackson County has written, and I appreciate the comments that were made, but I think that we could tweak the resolution a little bit that would maybe fit all parties, that we feel it would be something that we could support. So what I would ask is that we move this to the first meeting in February, allow me some time to go through it and connect with some of the people that have been working on this, and come forward with the resolution that has Pennington County's language in it versus a copy and paste from another county.
So
I'll second that,
Okay.
that
We got a motion and a
continuance
second
till
to move this to the-
February,
Mr. Chair.
February what?
Hold on a second.
What's the first meeting in February, Holly, please?
Commissioner, it'll be February 4th.
I'll second that motion for it to be continued to February 4th for more information.
So we got a motion and a second, and we got a comment from Commissioner Drews, so.
Thank you. I'm gonna support the motion because I think there needs to be some clarification. The people I've heard from don't like the mandate, but are not necessarily opposed to the ID. And so I think that if we can clear up that language, I still don't know that we know all the information. And I think that, in my contacts after our last meeting, I contacted some commissioners from counties that have passed the resolution, and quite frankly was told that they didn't do any research on it. They just accepted it and passed it. And so I think before we move on something, either yay or nay, that we should have all the information and be able to understand it.
So Chairman,
We have a motion to move this to the first meeting in February. If you guys don't mind, I would like to say maybe some clarification from Commissioner Drews and Commissioner Durr on the language in there, so that we have a direction to take this in. So we can whoever redraws this or redrafts that, we could go through you two guys to get some redrawing of this, if that works with you guys. I don't want to.
so Chair,
Yes.
in respect, Travis is wanting to speak, if that's okay.
Yeah,
He's the
sure,
one that put
come
it
on
on the agenda, sir. Thank you.
Come on up and you can talk again.
Travis Lasser, thanks again. If you don't mind, because I purposely put it in there in the current resolution, unless something has changed and I didn't see it, that just being opposed to the mandatory aspect of the EIDs. Is there some language in there that's outside of that gives you pause or question on that? Because I have, again, if somebody wants to use EIDs, I don't have a problem with that. If they want to get the EIDs for this, I've never had a problem with that. In fact, I made that statement from the dais before.
But, Mr. Lasser, and I appreciate that. I think that maybe if these guys are probably not opposed to involving you in some of that, and just so you can get your input, since you were evidently the guy that puts a lot of this together, that'd be up to those guys, that if you'd involve him and we could come up with a redraft or something between now and the next meeting in February, then we can move on, if that works for you guys. Okay, fine. So we got a motion and a second, so no more discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on to the next item. Lost my place. Item number
Commission manager. 17.
17, items from commission manager, Board of Commission bylaws and rules procedure annual review. So,
Chair,
yep.
could continue this until
Yeah.
the next meeting. I'd like more time to look at it if I
Yeah,
could, sir.
I appreciate that too, because we did have a big packet and we knew have two new commissioners here, and so I think there was a lot of stuff to go through. So if we could move it to even the next meeting or the first one in February, I'm good with either one. I'm open to discussion on it.
Mr. Chairman,
Is there a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second, so have discussion on that motion and moving it to which date, Commissioner?
I have a comment. So yeah, it's a lot to go through, and I understand it's a procedural thing for the first meeting in January, but you have a change of a board, and so it's kind of a lot to go through it. Maybe have some follow-up questions with Holly or other commissioners and have those conversations. I do have a comment related to the second meeting in January, which is the 20th on Tuesday. My family booked a trip, and I will not be here.
Okay. So
And-
I'd like you to be here for that, so we can move it, can we change the motion to move it to like February?
Or, Chair, if I could speak.
Yes.
So what's going to happen usually we'll reschedule if everybody agrees to move the second meeting here to a different date, and hopefully that works for all 5 commissioners, because I hate to see a commissioner miss a meeting on this important, so maybe,
Take them a long time to get that big family to wherever they're going.
so,
Actually, we're going to Washington DC to the inauguration, so.
Awesome, that's awesome.
so if I could ask Commissioner Durr, when, do you know when that date you would be back that we could present to the commission at this time?
Yeah, I'm going to be traveling, and I'll be back on the 21st. And so I'll be back late on the 21st, and I would be ready for a meeting, the 22nd if we wanted to do it anytime in that week. It's up to the board, and if you would rather just have a meeting and I not be here, that's fine as well.
Mr. Chair, my take on this,
Commissioner
on
Roskinek.
February the 4th, we're going to be looking at more information on the EID.
Okay.
So that everybody, and we're talking about a couple complex things that are going to take some time to study, so I would recommend the first meeting in March.
Okay. For the,
For
the rules?
the bylaws.
Okay, I'm fine with that too, so. Is that a substitute motion?
That's a substitute motion.
Is that, we get a second?
Second, and can you tell me the reasoning again why you do it till March
March 4th.
instead of February?
Because we're gonna be
Commissioner-
spending a lot of time on the
Correct.
Okay.
other.
Try not
that's
to
coming
put
in
'em
February,
together.
Moved into March. The policies and procedures, and I would have to agree that it's, one of the things that came up is how do we move forward? And some of it, there was some mention earlier about policies and procedures, so I think it's very important that we spend the time to get this right, or try to get it as close to right as possible, and so we have something that we can work with. So I'm good with going into March, so.
Okay.
We got a first and a second on that, so any more discussion on moving it to the meeting, the first meeting in March? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. No motion carries. We'll move on to the next item. And that is B, Planning Commission meetings, commissioner rotation.
Mr. Chair,
We have Mr. Roskinek.
I like that idea because you're keeping that continuity there, doing it 2 months in a row.
Okay.
Because you do it 1 month and then you do it 5 months later, that next meeting, if you do it 2 months in a row, that next meeting you'll have all the information that you had the previous month. And I think you're going to make better decisions.
Chair?
We got a motion.
Yes.
Commissioner Hadcock.
For me, I'm okay doing it once a month or 2 times in 1 month and not doing it for 2 months in a row. I think for me, I run a business and those Mondays are very important to me, as well as the constituents I get. But you can still do an efficient and effective job whether it's a continuance for the next month or not. For me, I've never had a problem. I've been on here for 10 years and on the Planning Commission, never had a problem with the next commissioner calling me and filling me in with that information. So for me, doing that consecutively with Mondays and Tuesdays coming up 2 months in a row, plus our 6 committees, for me, I would ask that you leave it as is.
Mr. Chair. I do support doing the 2 months consecutively. I just think it would be of assistance to the planning commission and to the individual commissioners.
Any other
Mr. Chair,
discussion?
it's no different than the 4-day work week. You're still getting your 2 months. It's just not going to be every other month.
Okay, Commissioner Durr, you look like you had a question.
Yeah, I just have a comment. I do support the 2-month rotation. I know that some counties appoint a chairperson to an entire year on the planning board to maintain that continuity. So anyway, I do support the 2 months. I think it would be a good thing, and especially with the change in the board to get their
So
feet
can we
wet,
get a
so-
motion then? And
I'll go ahead and make the motion.
We got a motion, do we get a second?
Second.
Okay,
I'll go
second.
ahead and finish the whole motion. Move to approve changing to a 2-month rotation going forward for the commission members sitting on the planning commission.
Thank you, and we got a second, so any discussion?
Chair, I respect that, but I will
Commissioner Hancock.
probably ask if someone can substitute the next month and I can take their month. I've done that before and others have done that for me.
Sure.
So I won't be voting for this motion, but I'll respect that. You want to move this forward. Brittany has something as well, so if she could, Brittany, if you want to come up and speak.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brittany Molitor, Planning Director. I guess I would suggest maybe a compromise to assist Commissioner Hadcock's schedule is maybe have her in the rotation at a 1 month and everyone else at a 2 month. We could work that schedule with my admin assistant, and we could get that to Holly for review by this board, but that way it could accommodate her schedule and also the rest of the board.
Chairman.
Hold on a second, I want to ask the motion maker here if he's okay with making a friendly amendment to that, to just have her rotate in.
Could I hear that motion again?
Which one are we on?
Brittany's going to do it again here, Kara, but you're aware of your motion, you're going to want to hear what Brittany had to say?
Correct.
Perfect.
I would suggest or recommend that all the other commissioners be on a 2-month rotation, and then Commissioner Hadcock's rotation would be 1 month at a time. So say Commissioner Ross Connect, you'd be January, February, then Commissioner Hadcock could be March, and then, the next commissioner could be the
And
next
I'm
2
good
months.
with that as long as it's this current, it's for this current commission. When another commissioner comes on at some future date, then we reconsider the 2 months.
Chair, can I speak before you do that?
Hold on a second.
I would try to answer your question, Commissioner Ross Connect. We bring this to you every year. So every year, this board would
Okay.
look at that schedule.
That's where we're going to reassess it.
Doesn't cage us in anything, okay?
Yeah, I can withdraw my motion.
Okay, Brittany, I'm going to respect what you just said, but I'm going to disagree. Thank you for being so kind. I'm always working with your staff, and they're very kind to me, and I appreciate that. I think what can happen is I can just have people take a month, and then I could take their month if it's not contentious or something. I'd rather do that than be treated differently than everybody else on this issue. I could work it out, like I said. I think, and I've taken other people's, even for extra time when I've had time, because they've worked better and they've taken mine. So I think between all of us, we could work that out without making a special
All right,
motion.
so we'll move forward. That being said, we'll go back to the original motion. There wasn't a change made. So any other discussion on that motion? The original motion was to switch it to 2 months at a time.
Mr. Chair, I withdrew that motion, so I don't think we got to
Okay.
vote on it.
So let's have a second. Can we put a motion on the floor then?
We already have one.
Yeah, we have one.
Okay, right. Okay, perfect. So any discussion on that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion carries. So we'll move on to the next item, which is number 18. Items from chair commission members, time for the individual members to bring forth ideas or concerns to the full board. Official action will not be taken on any of the items brought forth at this time. Direction may be given to bring them back before the board for the consideration. So, and the first item on here is one item that I brought forward, and it is a request to evaluate the outcome of the expectations and the schedule of the 4-day compressed work week. And the reason I brought that forward is as I was running for office, that I had several people confront me about the 4-day work week and the confusion that the people have when they come to the courthouse. And I wasn't privy to any of the information that took place. I've had a chance to a little bit review what some of the decisions that were made, but I haven't had a chance to overall review them. But I'm thinking that I would like to go back and revisit this and see if it still makes sense. Did we meet these expectations? Did it produced the results that we wanted to produce. What were those results? And so I just wanted to give notice that I'll be looking into this so people that have concerns can contact their commissioners and in writing with their names on them and say what their concerns are, or what, either if they like the 4-day work week, whether it works for them or whether it doesn't work for them, whether it doesn't work for their business. But serving the community is something that's important. That's what our job is as the county, is serving the community. That's what we're here for. We are basically a cost center for the citizens of our community to make sure that we're servicing those people. So there's a fine line, a balance that needs to happen there, and I think that we need to relook at anything that is involved in the 4-day work week, and I'll stand to anybody else has any comments or. Yes.
You know, I got into that pretty deep with the title companies. I've had meetings here with the title company. I've had meetings with the title company, all 3 title companies, and our auditor. Because as an appraiser for 30 years, I had to make phone calls on Friday. I had to talk to the Director of Equalization, Planning and Zoning, the Treasurer, and other departments. And it gets pretty hard when I'm out of the appraisal business now, but I think it's pretty important to be able to sit there and if they want to do 10-hour shifts, I don't have a problem. But to me, the county should be open on Fridays. That's just my 2 cents.
And I appreciate that. So, Alderman
I'm going to agree with Commissioner Rosknecht, because when I first did this, it was like 6 months into it. We had 6 months to trial, and at that time, I didn't hear a lot of complaints. We also didn't go through a whole year where you had titles and taxes, where a lot of people pay their taxes on the second half. So my thought was, you don't get rid of the 4-day work week. What you do is you try to work it in the schedules. The sheriff's office is not going to be able to do it. Some people aren't going to be able to do that and aren't maybe already. I don't know for sure. I haven't checked on it lately, and I'm using an example, Sheriff. So I'd like to see what they're doing now. And my bottom line is, if you are doing that, and a couple people, employees called me yesterday, they really like it, and I can appreciate that, but we are here for the public as well. I agree with Commissioner Rosknecht on that. And the bottom line is if I'd like the building or your department to be open 5 days a week. If you decide to do Ron Monday through Thursday for his schedule and Deb Tuesday through Friday, I'd rather see it that way, where you still, because we're about the employees as well as the public, let's see if we can do it more like that. And I had suggested that before, and I went with basically trial and error to see what would happen. And at this point, I'm with Commissioner Weifenbach that the public is not happy. The public is not happy about Fridays for elections. They're not happy about how we're running the treasures in a certain way. Not that they're doing a bad job, it's just that Friday they expect to be able to come in. So let's try to find some kind of compromise that we still take care of our employees. We still look at that 4-day work week and find some resolution on both sides for the employees and the public. That's my opinion today.
Thank you, Commissioner Hadcock. Any more conversation?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Drews.
So what I've heard from the public on this is that they really like the additional hours, opening at 7 o'clock in the morning and being open after 5, that really works well into their schedule. I have not heard a lot of complaints about not being open on Friday. I mean, I support what we've done in the past. Obviously, it's worth a discussion moving forward, but I think that one of the things we need to keep in mind is now we do have a public that's used to having those extra hours, early hour in the morning and later hour in the afternoon, to conduct their business with the county. And so I think we need to weigh that also.
Thank you, Mr. Drews. Any more discussion? We can move on to the next item, or Mr. Durr, or Commissioner Durr, sorry.
Yeah, I have just a couple comments. So, I mean, I have heard some negativity, when I was out and about, campaigning about the 4-day work week. But I also know that, you tend to hear from the people that have a complaint about something versus the opposite. So the comment that I would make about altering the work week, and I agree that we should be open as much as we can to serve the public. That's what we're here for. But it would be that would be a conversation when you're talking about getting back to a 5-day work week and having employees somehow scheduled to still have that additional opportunity to have that extra day off, or however they're amending it right now. I know that, there's a schedule that everybody does things a little bit different, but that would be a discussion with the, department heads who have the staff to say, I'm not staffed to go to these additional work days or additional hours with altered work week of having an employee, with that schedule and what that looks like. And so I think the discussion is fine, but I don't want to take any action on it until we have input from department heads as to about how it's been working for them, and if we were to change it, what that impact is.
Correct, and there's none of these will be action items. I just wanted to get them on the radar for people. And I do say that, they went through, the commission before us went through and raised a lot of the wages of the elected officials and the department heads, the people that are in charge. I think there's some good people in these positions, and the flexibility that a 5-day work week has within those people. There's a lot of them that already are still doing a 5-day work week. There are some, like I talked to the highway department, it's almost imperative that they have a 4-day work week there, because they got to go through, do the maintenance on the equipment, they got to get it started up, they got to drive to Wall or New Underwood or drive to Hill City or something. But that's a conversation, you're right, there needs to be a lot of input into it, but I wanted it to be on the radar, I don't want it to be a surprise to anybody when it comes up again. So we'll move on to item B, and this one is more, I would give more direction to Commissioner Durr on here. I put this on here. And after having a discussion with Commissioner Durr on it, so if you wanted to take the lead on that one, Jerry, I would appreciate it.
Nice call out. So, yeah, the discussion that we had was talking about the current policy of the county wherein we're paying overtime over and above federal law. And so we're paying overtime on accrued leave. And accrued leave is paid at an hourly rate, so sick leave, vacation, holiday leave, whatever the benefited leave is, it's accrued and given at an hourly rate. And the county by policy is paying that out at time and a half, which I don't agree with. And so let's just say a work week is, let's take an employee scheduled Monday through Friday, and it's an 8-hour day, Monday through Friday, 40-hour work week. Let's say on Monday, the employee uses sick leave and takes 8 hours of sick leave. On a Tuesday, depending on the work week and where, the overtime period is calculated. But let's just say, it's a Monday through Friday, just to make the math easy. They take Monday as a sick day. On Tuesday through Friday, they work 40 hours for whatever reason. So if they work 40 hours, normally that would not be paid out any accrued overtime. Any overtime would not be calculated on that 40 hours. You take that 8 hours of non-work time given at an hourly rate, and then that 8 hours becomes paid out at time and a half. And I don't think that that's the way that we should be looking at our overtime and how we should be paying that out. So I did have a conversation with the HR director talking about that when I saw it in the policy. She stated that she was working on many policy changes, and we had some understanding on this. But I think I believe the HR department's going to be looking at a revision of the current county handbook for 2025 during this fiscal year. So anyway, the HR department's looking on some of those changes, and they've got other changes to come forward. But I think it's a fair talking point to go back to department heads and the compensation committee, et cetera, to talk about, these overtime hours and how they're being paid out. And I do not believe that we should be paying out overtime above what federal law mandates, and particularly a benefit given by the county that is not mandated by the feds or the state, but we're giving a benefit. And then I don't know how much is happening. I'm just saying, even if it's once, we should not be paying overtime on accrued leave.
Thank you, Commissioner Durr. Any other comments? And because I would like to make a comment, but I'll wait.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, so the comment I would make is to give direction to the department heads to see how this affects their departments, where it's happening at, and then get back to us on, another meeting. I think that would be a good direction to
Chair,
start with.
You would need a motion from the board?
I don't think we need a motion specifically. I think they're well enough to, if they don't want to give us the information, then I guess that won't happen. But I think that Unless you guys think there needs to be a motion to give the department heads direction.
I don't think we need a motion.
Okay, so I think that they will be concerned enough to give us this information before our next meeting, to give us the information of how your overtime, how this policy, is it a policy? I don't even know. It's kind of a vague policy. Is your department operating in this manner where they're paying overtime when there should not be overtime? Exactly hours wasn't worked, but it was a holiday that created overtime. I know there's some exceptions when you get into probably law enforcement when they're working specific, whatever happens when they gotta work an extra hour. Those are discussions we'll have. We just want to get our arms around what's happening out there right now, because we have noticed a lot of that happening, and we also noticed a lot of like the people that have accrued leave and those types of things. When we talk about this 4-day work week, this is an opportunity for people to use that. Well, I've seen, when you save up a year or half a year worth of sick time and overtime, it makes me wonder how motivational can you be if you're not taking time off, or if you're working through your lunch breaks and that stuff to make these things happen. It's not productive for you, and it's not productive for the county. So those are things that we'd be looking for, some guidance from the department heads. But right now, talking about overtime, so if you could bring that back to us, Commissioner Heidkock, go ahead.
Here, Jerry, I think what usually, I don't care if it's me or our department heads, I think they're specifically looking for that specific direction. So to say to look at overtime, there might be 10 other, what is the specific direction that we're giving to the department heads today, so they have an inkling of bottom line what we're talking about?
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
So my
Mr.
suggestion would be that you have the HR director, who's already reviewing the policy, take this back to department heads as a discussion and let HR come forward and give a report as to looking at a policy change or how much of an impact this currently is in the county, but, have one source, and I think it should be HR working with department heads to
Perfect,
look
so we'll
at
give
this.
the HR
Correct.
Carol some direction on understanding to get.
Thank you.
Get us a copy of and you know exactly okay, we'll move on. Next item is C, current status of Pennington County Public Defender operating building and 900 Concourse Drive. And when I put these on here, I was very vague about it. Mr. Purcell, if you're here, Davis Purcell, if you're here, I won't do this to you guys in the future. I'll be more specific, and we talked a little bit on the phone, and what I'm looking for and what I'm hoping that the commission would engage in is having you tell us and the public where we're at specifically in this process, the funding that took place, where that funding came from, and where we're at and how much we have left to finish the remodels on the building, and maybe a small timeline and a synopsis perspective.
Sure. So yeah, I had very limited time to kind of get this on the agenda here, and I can certainly come back and present a more detailed version of it later. But the two, or actually it's just one memo that I submitted is very short, but what it does is it breaks down concourse, the square footage, what the purchase price is, and obviously I should have put on here, but concourse is going to be the new county administration building. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Durr.
I do have a
Mr. Durr.
request, and that is
Sure.
if you could take the information that you have and we can throw it up on the screen so everybody in the room can see the same that we're looking at.
Can we do that?
Thank you.
That'd be appropriate.
Okay, so as you can see here, I broke down the 900 Concourse project. It's a 76,000 square foot building. It was mainly a wide open concept with a lot of systems, furniture, and cubicles that will be reused once we bring the departments back or move the departments into that building. So the purchase price for that in September of '22 was roughly $6.9 million. That did include some land to the north as well, so this was the total purchase price for the building as well as the land. Our remodel budget there, this is currently what it is, $9.3 million. This is with budgeted numbers for FF&E costs, but those are always up in the air as once we get closer to purchasing furniture and signage and other related items that are under FF&E, that number can change. And we do have some additional change orders that will be coming to the commission for additional funding as well. So you can see the bond proceeds there. Now, I can't really tell you what all this is. I would probably have to request that from Cindy as far as what all the bond proceeds are. But there's your rough total of $48 million, and you take the concourse project, the remodel cost, and then you get down to $39 million. So the reason I did not add the purchase price in, because that was deducted before. I don't have those totals from when we purchased the bank building and we purchased concourse.
Chair,
So,
may I ask him a question?
You bet. Commissioner Hadcock.
So, Mr. Davis, and I've been asking, and people have been asking and about the bonding, the ARPA funds. Bottom line is, who would have, you don't have the numbers from it started to where it is today and a breakdown of what we spent on the buildings, what we started with. I haven't seen that since, I think I pulled it up on my email since 21 or 22. There was a couple different ones. So I'm getting where you're going today, but maybe it's just me, but I can't figure out from all these buildings where we're at with the money and where we got all the money, and not from just the past to do the work, but for the future of how we're moving forward and paying for the buildings. So we're going through a presentation of what you know today, but Chair and Commission, I'd like to know where we get the numbers. Is it from the auditor's office? Because I talked to Cindy today about where we started, how much ARPA, where all the money the ARPA went to, and to if it went for buildings or whatever. And then your bottom line is, how much do we really have left? And how are we paying for the future expansion through the FF&E, and how we're paying for it with the staffing, how we're paying for it with the utilities? Is that all in the budgets? Does everybody understand that? Because in order to know a budget and to move forward on buildings, you have to, maybe you don't need to know the past, but I think you need the past in order to figure out where the money's coming from for the future. Because if you're using your budget, which I believe, when I was on building committee, we were using some of your 800 to fund some of this, and I'm not in favor of that, because your budget is important to you. So other people are having other people pull from their budgets or your budget to pay for their areas, which I think becomes a problem. So there's just a lot of different areas in this discussion than where we're at today, because it's important to know all the numbers. And what I mean by that, and I've been saying this, and Travis has been saying this, from concourse to the building St. Joe across the street. Also, how is it affecting your budget?
Commissioner Hadcock, I'm gonna shut you down on this one, and the reason why is when I put this on there, I left it very vague, so it could be a long drawn out process, and I understand completely where you're coming from. We got to get to that point. Mr. Davis called me, and we talked about it, and I wanted him to present what he had specifically with where the building was built, what it cost, where we're at, when it'll be finished, how much it's going to cost to be finished. So we will need to give someone some direction here on how we go forward and how we get our arms around that. This opens up that conversation, and I think that it's almost to the point where we're going to have to get, say, you and I or whatever together with the auditor's office and create that and bring that back to the committee. So with that being said,
If I could, I respect that, but I also know some of those things need to be put to the public.
Right, they will be.
In full disclosure. And number two, that Mr. Davis came into this
Right.
process
Yep.
and was not involved in the process before. And he's in the dark as much as some of our commissioners about this process and moving forward. And all he's doing today is trying to make everybody understand what he knows today. But him moving forward as well, he needs, in full disclosure, needs all the information.
It
in order to
definitely
move
will be
forward.
in on our
So that's-
conversation.
That's why I have
Yep,
brought that
yep.
up today.
Yep. And
Because
that's why-
that's his job description, and for him to be able to say, now I can move forward with this, I got it, I got the numbers, I can tell you what happened in the past, that's not only for Mr. Davis and this board, that is for the public,
Correct,
and that's why I brought it
exactly.
up, sir.
And we definitely,
Thank you.
when I, part of my conversation when I started was that we are going to do the housekeeping items. This is one of the housekeeping items. It's very vague when I put it on here. I won't do that again. Going forward, we'll be together on finding out everything we need to know, so you are better prepared. I think we got the right guy in the position to get this done. And I said, with that being said, though, I think,
Yes.
Commissioner Ross can.
You know, we're talking about taxpayers' money, and
I'm gonna give him a little flexibility here.
2 or 3 years ago, we were told by a firm that we all agreed to hire, BKV, that we needed about 150,000 square feet in the next 10 to 15 years. So just making the assumption that we did nothing today relative to buying 14 St. Joe or 900 Concourse, I think we can all assume that in 2030, we're going to need some additional space. So what I did is I took 900 Concourse that we bought 2022 for $6,969.92. And I extracted, I'm only looking for what we paid for the building. I extracted the land at $2 a square foot, which it was assessed at, and I gave that cafeteria and all the gym equipment $500,000. So I come out with an effective sale price of $577,209 just for the building. That's $75.63 a square foot. Your presentation shows that right now we're at $9,323,946. I saw that in the presentation here. So if I take that and I add it to the residual to the building that that I just discussed, the effective building cost for that 76,316 square foot building was $15,069,039. That's
15 million, correction. You said
15.
Yep,
Yep.
you said 15,000.
With that being said, if we waited 30 years, and I asked Andy Scull to do the best that he could to tell me what that much space would cost in 30 years, and he said, Ron, it's going to be $452.68. That's $34,000, and we paid 15. That's a savings to the taxpayers of over $19 million. So that was one of the rationale when we sat there and we found additional space. We didn't go out and buy a piece of land. We didn't build a new building. We bought an older building and we repurposed it, knowing that we're going to save the taxpayers the most money in the long run.
Thank you, Mr. Roskinek. And then, so, Mr. Davis, we'll allow you to finish here.
Sure.
Just summarize it.
And then I have a
we'll-
couple comments after I'm done
Absolutely.
sharing these two. So again, I can't tell you a breakdown of all these bond proceeds here, or if it's all from a bond or not, or some ARPA funds and things like that. I do not have that answer, but I can say this is the pot we're working with. And you take the concourse project out with what we have budgeted now, you're at just under 40 million. First Interstate Bank purchased in July, or purchase price in July of 23 was $5 million. I believe there was also some land across the street as well in that purchase price. I do not remember if it was in that $5 million or not. But what we have here is our initial remodel budget for the Public Defender and Operations Building, or people like to refer to it as First Interstate Bank, was 1.625 million. Our projected costs are roughly 1.1, so we're about $520,000 under. We had $600,000 that was discretionary spending, and then plus the 108 from MAC equaled, right now we're at $1,028,108. So what I did here is I just rounded it to 1.1, as there's still some moving costs and other related items here in the coming weeks. So takes your total from 39.4 down to 38.3. And this was not requested, but what I wanted to show here is this is the same pot of money that we're using for the jail project now. which I know is very much in the public eye. Projected design fees, now, we have a number that's higher than this, but I have gave direction to BKV to only design up to a certain point. So right now, this is what we'd be spending for the design of the entire jail project, which is 4.8. And if you deduct that from your 38.3, you get 33.4. So again, this is the remaining proceeds that we would deduct essentially, or we would use towards the jail, and then obviously that's a whole nother discussion on whether we will bond for initial dollars to construct the jail. So those are the numbers I'm working with now. And again, yeah, as far as the property acquisitions of 900 Concourse and First Interstate Bank, obviously Buildings and Grounds knew there was money available to purchase those buildings, and what was used, whether it was bond proceeds or ARPA funds or other things like that, I just can't tell you. I don't want to put any added work on Cindy, our auditor, but we have all the spreadsheets that track all of our projects, and we deduct it from a pot of money that we're working with, but what that pot of money is constructed of, I cannot tell you. So,
Thank you, Mr. Purcell, and we will.
Mr. Chair, could I go over the
Yeah,
same
Mr.
presentation I did with 900 Concourse?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
So
Yep,
in
he's got another.
723, we purchased the 14 St. Joe property for $5 million. We got a 90,000 square foot central business district lot with that, which I extracted from that price, and I extracted 100,000 for FF&E and a tower lease that we had with Verizon. So looking at just what we paid for bricks and mortar was $2,852,575. I'm just going to round it off, $79 a square foot. Now, if we didn't do anything now in 2030, we had to replace that building according to Andy Scull, and I think this number is low, would be $532 a square foot. That'd be $19,500 rounded. And our effective price just for the building at 14 St. Joe was $4 million. So there again, there's $15 million savings to the taxpayer based on some assumptions that were backed up by one of the most respected builders in Rapid City. So we're thinking about taxpayers. When people see us buying these buildings, we're not doing it because we're trying to put a burden on the taxpayers. The burden would be 2030 if we didn't do anything today.
Thank you, Commissioner Roscoe.
I'd like to add one more thing.
One more thing.
If the direction is to, I guess what I could do, and what I'm working on currently is, I'm assessing the needs assessments from 2010 and then another one from 2023. I'm sort of summarizing them as best as I can, putting them into a presentation, and I was going to include a lot of this information, not only that I have here, but some of the stuff that Mr. Roskinick is talking about. And I can certainly come back and present that. I'd still need some more time, but I can show you kind of where we started, where they said we were lacking on space, and then obviously what happened after that with these property acquisitions, and then now where we're at with the jail too. I can certainly do that, but I request that you give me direction to do that.
I think as long as the commission's okay with that, I think that I would volunteer myself and Commissioner Hadcock to sit down with Davis and go through and point out the direction of the information that we want to bring back to the commission at a specific date. We won't make that specific date and time right now, but we could have that conversation, and then at least so we can get our arms around it and everybody can, we incorporate all the information that we have, so.
Mr. Chair, I'll close with the 14 St. Joe and the 900 Concourse required just roughly 100,000 square feet. And the recommendation by KB or BKB, whatever, was we needed 150,000 square feet or roughly that. So with those two buildings, and if we look at that report and their suggestions, we're about 2/3 the way to where we need to be. Keeping in mind, we're not thinking today, we're thinking out 10 to 15 years ago. If they would have put that same thought in this building, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hadcock.
So I appreciate Commissioner Ross running these numbers, but these got a lot of numbers that haven't been ran for other FF&E and other stuff, and to say we have savings and what would cost you from 20 to 30 years from now, and making that assumption with what's happening today in our community with property tax and other things, I'm in disagreement with
Commissioner
that we needed
Hadcock,
something with
I'm
20
gonna-
to
I'm
30
gonna-
years.
I'm
So,
going to ask you to hold those comments until we get a chance to look at this again. I understand there's a lot of history behind there, so any history that we can gather has been appreciated. We'll move forward and we'll get the real numbers, we'll get our arms around it. I know there's a lot more we got to cover today too, so I
But,
don't want to get in a back and forth about
and
what's
Chairman,
what.
I can appreciate that. The main thing is if you're putting out papers, that we have all the information from now on, sir, and that's what.
Well, he's got his name on it, so that's good, and
Thank you.
That's why I gave him
Yeah.
the flexibility. Commissioner Durr.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So yeah, with the buildings and such, there's a lot of moving parts. I believe that, the new commissioners, along with, went with Mr. Drews to tour the concourse property. But what I would like to see, and we don't have to take action on it today, but I would like to see in the future is that the entire commission, that we take a tour of all of our county footprint and allow department heads to show us their buildings and their operations and what they're doing, how they and their staff are utilizing our current space. And I think it would, then I'm a visual guy, so when you have that kind of boots on the ground and you have that conversation, you have that walkthrough, when you come back and you start talking about some of these things, it makes a little more sense and maybe we could all have a little more understanding.
Thank you, Commissioner Drew, and I know that's a great idea. All we have to do is notice it, and we can get together with you, and you can provide a way for the tour. The commission, we'll have that conversation on a later date about, I think that makes the most sense, as you took me through a tour of the building, and you can actually see the size of the building and how it's gonna function and all the moving parts. So I appreciate that.
One
If
more
there's
thing,
no more
Chair.
comment?
One more comment, Chair, it's positive.
Yep.
So I think that's also going to help moving forward for our jail, to see what's happening in our jail, just that footprint as well. That was a good suggestion. So we can actually speak intelligently on this square footage and all this other stuff that we're talking about today and move forward, because I do believe that the jail needs to be moved forward. I mean, it's something for public safety. So I think if we could get that footprint and look at kind of the whole picture of the county at that point, and where's our priorities for the future, and where's that spending for the priorities moving forward in order to make these buildings functional and the jail being able to move forward as well. So thank
I
you,
think-
Commissioner
I
Durr.
think Commissioner Durr's idea of getting together, all of us, and getting to the tour of the buildings and get our arms around it once and for all, so we can all speak intelligently to the public when they ask us the questions, and we're not guessing or anything like that.
I just have one final comment.
Sure.
Be to Sheriff Mueller. If 5 commissioners go into the jail for a tour, how many walk out? Okay.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Roskinek, go
The
ahead.
study by
BKB.
Yeah, okay, I never get that right. They did do a detailed description based on an interview with each department, what they thought they were gonna need, not like tomorrow. What are you gonna need, your office, with the growth in Rapid City? You see those apartment buildings going up. Every one of those apartment buildings is gonna be occupied by somebody that's probably gonna have a vehicle that's gonna have to come down here and get it registered. So with that being said, we know that we're gonna expand, and I think the mindset was, when they gave us those numbers, they said, and they interviewed each department head or department, that's all outlined in that report, and I think the new commissioners need to see that. How much space you got now? What do you think you're gonna need in 2010, 2015, looking out into the future?
Thank you, Mr. Roskinek. So, Mr. Davis, do you have any more comments? Or?
No, thank you. I'm good.
Thank you for the tour the other day, Mr. Davis.
We appreciate your time, and I hope that I didn't set you straight, and know in the future, when I bring you up there, we'll be more pointed, and we'll stick to what we're talking about a little more, so. But we'll move on, thank you. We'll move on to D, a request for discussion on the legality of the wage changes for department heads and elected officials as a result of the open meetings commission decisions. And I brought this to the table because we've had some of the decisions that were made that weren't properly agended, or whatever you want to say. So, and there were wage increases that were made that weren't properly agended. So I'm hoping that we can give some direction, and I'm not sure where this goes, if we have to reach out to State's Attorney's Office, and we can then reach out to the risk pool to say, these decisions that were made that weren't properly agended, in what I read, it says that they are void. They are null and void. The votes that took place are basically null. And that's my concern, that if we've got, because I'm sure that those wheels are already in motion, probably, and maybe the HR director can speak to that those wheels are in motion already, that those raises that were done that way are already in motion, and we need to know if we need to revisit this. So I'm asking the commission to maybe give the state's attorney's office direction. So if we need to do nothing, then we need to get it in writing that we need to do nothing. And that way we are covered. If somebody brings it to our attention at a later date, we can say, we revisited this, and here's what we have to do. If we have to revisit it, and we have to re-vote on it, re-agenda it, all that, then we do that. Or if we do nothing, we do nothing. But I wanted to get it in writing, so Laura, if you're okay with that, if you want to come up to the dais, and and if these guys are okay with that direction, or if they have any input into that direction. So I guess my question to you would be, is that the right direction to head with this, to make sure that we are covered in the future for this?
Mr. Chair, Laura Retzel, State's Attorney. We have begun researching this issue even before you put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Many states have statutes that address this issue specifically.
Mhm.
South Dakota is one of the states that does not. Tyler Sobczak has been assigned this responsibility and, like I said, has begun researching it extensively. I think that some of the wages have been ratified because they've been addressed specifically by the board in public sense. The executive sessions that originated the dollar amounts, other ones of them have not. Some of the salaries are of elected officials who, by statute, once those salaries are set and spoken into being on the dais, cannot be reduced or changed. So there's statutes in play for some of the elected officials. It's a complicated legal issue. So I would ask that the direction be that the state's attorney's office research the issue and come back with direction by a date that you specify.
Okay. And so you said Tyler, that's the young fellow I
Tyler
met?
Sobczak is the one
perfect.
that's specifically researching it, but obviously Mr. Alderman and I are ultimately responsible for that.
Perfect. Is the commission okay with that direction? If you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could have a few comments. So,
Bruce?
so some of, what went to the Open Meetings Commission and some of the decisions and talking about some of the personnel stuff, let's just say a market analysis that should have been talked about in public. And so the one in question a department heads raised, came out and the board took action, but to deny that opportunity, the Open Meetings Commission said that that should have been on the agenda, so that the public could have had comment or input. And there's a process in place tied to this that I was going to kind of wait for a later date to chat about, but I think it's appropriate now. And that is, so when these decisions are made about moving an employees to, a different position, let's just say an employee has a step increase and they're moved to a different position on a scale. And the process that I would like to see just on routine personnel matters, which I have talked to the HR director about, is that every month there is a memorandum from the HR director that's on the consent calendar that highlights all the employee changes. So Joe Smith, the corrections officer, is making $26 an hour. Joe is moving to the next step on the pay scale. That is, $27 an hour, and it's effective this date, and it's within budget per policy type thing. And so I'd rather see, and then if it's, basically you just outline all these different personnel actions, new hires, new corrections officer started at the jail, Jane Doe started at the jail at step one, making this much on this date as a new hire. I would like to see all of those personnel matters on the consent calendar with the memorandum from the HR director highlighting all of those. And then if we have a question, we can obviously pull it off the consent calendar. The process that is happening right now is all of that information is being captured, but it's not on the agenda. It's being automatically put in the minutes for the board to approve at the next meeting. And so a lot of these pay changes, let's just say if they were not discussed in front of the board, and I don't know that that's the case, but that was an approval by the board and an official action taken by the board, and those pay changes were published monthly in the minutes of the commission meeting. And so my take on it is that once the board approved those minutes with those pay changes in the minutes of the meeting, that is the approval of that pay change, and there is no going back to look at it. That's my interpretation.
Yes, Commissioner Durr, two things. The first process that you mentioned is one that we are routinely seeing in other jurisdictions as we're researching what methodology should be used to appropriately handle the presentation of wages to the commission. So if my opinion matters in this moment, I do think that's a good idea. The second thing you mentioned is what we would call a ratification type concept. And the last email I got from Mr. Sobczak as he is researching through this issue, I'm not ready to give a formal opinion, but it is exactly that the commission, by approving the minutes of the subsequent meeting, may have in effect ratified the wages by approving the minutes. So you may be legally correct, but we're still researching that issue.
All right.
Here.
Commissioner Durr, you're done?
Yes.
Commissioner Hadcock?
So, and why this all came about was because I thought the process wasn't being followed.
Yes, ma'am.
Me and Travis Lassiter. Moving forward, again, I appreciate people doing the research on it, but I agree, I don't know if I agree with Commissioner Durr on once it was approved in the minutes, that might be a true statement, but it's unfortunate because those are 3-2 votes for the reason of transparency to the public. So at this point, does the public really know, and did they know, somebody ran on it, on the increased wages, and if it was so approved and it's in the minutes, how come the public didn't know? Because it was done in executive session, brought into executive session, and then voted on without a public, you couldn't even tell what that meant. If I was a commissioner, if I didn't know what DBM and all that meant, I wouldn't even know what was happening. I would just think that they were having some discussion on some other thing about that was contractual, but those weren't contractual. So moving forward, I get it. And then that's what I keep telling people, moving forward is great, but the next step is, number one, get an agenda that's transparent and shows like we tried to do back in the day, and put those like we do other counties. We showed examples and things, and I hope moving forward that we would do that. I mean, I think Commissioner Durr is trying to say how we're going to get there. So moving forward, the past I get is done to a certain extent, but yeah, it's hard not to have a heartache after 3 or 4 years trying to push this through and now having to change a board in order to do this. With the state's attorney's office, I'll be up straight, defending and not researching way before then where the changes could have been made, because I kept saying, Travis kept saying, those changes are being made that weren't done like that in the past before transparency. So I appreciate us moving forward. I appreciate you doing the research on this, but I'm going to say again, put it on the agenda. The public's input, the public's basically transparency on what we do up here should never be hidden unless it's contractual to a point where it's going to actually go and do something bad to an employee or another person. So again, or not even, I don't know if the word is bad, but I appreciate us moving forward, but let's not forget that we are here to serve the public and know that they need to know all the information that we talk about and why we gave it. Because I'll keep saying, they didn't know about all the buildings. They didn't know about all the excessive wage increases. And transparency and public are two reasons why we get elected.
Yes, I could agree with you completely, Commissioner Hadcock.
Is there any more comments from the
I'm good.
dais? I want to make a comment, and the comment is, I appreciate what Commissioner Durr is saying. He's saying just that. Let's give the direction to the HR person to put all this stuff on the agenda. We approve it, then it goes in the minutes, because I've been doing some research, and I'll share it with you about, I don't know if it's specifically due to Robert's Rules of Order. That is what we have conducted our business as. People come in here and they expect Robert's Rules of Orders, and they have specific procedures and policies that they abide by. Basically, and I read minutes as the fact of that's what transpired at that meeting. I mean, if I'm a court reporter or whatever, and I'm out there doing my court reporting, and I do the minutes from that meeting, and it comes up with all this other stuff that wasn't happened at the meeting, I don't know that that makes any sense, but I understand where the ratification process comes in. And I appreciate that Tyler's doing the research on it. We're gonna move forward on this, and that's why we gave until March to go over the policies and procedures, to look at these options where there's crevices that we're falling into that we don't want to fall into. And we want to make sure we're doing it in the public's arena. We get all that, and we appreciate going forward if we're all on the same page with that. And I think this will bring some resolution. I think you got the right guy on the job for it. He's thorough. He seems like a great individual. And so looking at that, and we'll figure out where we need to be. And if we disagree at that point, we'll have that conversation ahead of time and make sure we get it right. And that's all that we care about, is that we got something in writing from somebody that says this is right, so everybody can move on with their life. And that's what, in between then, we're gonna have some house cleaning stuff to take care of, and we'll move on from that point. Moving forward, we'll be more pointed with clearer direction for everybody. So appreciate your time. Unless you had another comment, we'll move on, so.
Thank you, Commissioner Weifenbach. Anything else from me?
No, thank you. I'll move on to item number 19, meetings, committees, reports. Committee assignments to be presented at the January 21st committee meeting. I'm not sure I understand this one.
What you do is whoever's name's on there, sorry, Chair, whoever name, like if it's Deb Hadcock, Ron Roskinick, so, and Gary
Oh, that's what
Drews,
those initials are.
that's what you ask if they have any.
So these are some requests that you guys have made?
Nope, these are committee reports that we are in committees, and we
Oh,
get
okay,
reports
so
of those committees each
I'll
month.
ask for so we're just basically looking if you guys had anything to report from these
Sure,
committees.
yep.
So
Yes,
it
sir.
looks like Deb Hadcock and Ron Roskinick are on the PC Housing and Redevelopment. So at this point, we'll go to those two.
Okay,
So-
so I'll go first since Ron wasn't
Okay.
there.
I don't
Ladies
believe
He was
I made
having
that
surgery,
last
yeah.
meeting, so I'm going to defer to Deb.
Okay, so basically, we did our wages so we could move forward in January at the Pennington County Housing Authority. That's what we did. We talked about a few of the buildings that were moving forward and reconstructing and have been reconstructed. We also had a Christmas party for all of our employees or our department staff, and we will be moving forward next on the wage increase for our CEO, Brian Nachbach. So on the RAD, I'll report more on that once we have more information. We're changing to a RAD program, which is a whole different program for Pennington County Housing Authority, and selling houses and doing things in order to make it so we have the cash flow in the budget to make actually the housing facility whole with a couple different actions that we're doing at this point to serve more people in our community. And the TIF committee, I was out of town, so I was not there. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I might expand on kind of what we're trying to do at Pennington County Housing Redevelopment.
Please.
And what we have, the reason I got on there, and I think the reason Deb got on there, is because we started going the complaints on these scattered units, and that's 32 to 34 scattered units or single-family residents located throughout Rapid City, and they're in neighborhoods, where if we got a tenant that's not doing something right, well, then the neighbors complain. Well, what we're basically doing is going from a HUD program. HUD was started in 1934, and now it's starting to be underfunded. And we don't know where we don't know the stability of that funding, so now we're switching over to Section 8. That gives us the latitude that we can sell those 32 units or 34 units because they're basically problem units, and we're starting to get people out of those units, and some of those units are North Ramp, and if they sit there for 5 or 6 days, the windows get shot out. So I suggested to Brian that we don't wait until we get 16 empty units, that we try to sell those units as soon as we can, where we lose ownership and the Black Hills Works retains ownership. That way they're paying the expenses on those buildings, and we're not sitting there having an empty building out there with the lights off.
So Commissioner Roskinick, is that something that you need us to resolve with you, or do you, I mean?
No, I think it's a work in progress.
Okay.
But I'm glad that we're going to be able to sell those in smaller
Perfect.
packages to Black Hills Works.
Okay, perfect, then. So you're just telling us what's the process that's taking place right now?
Right.
Okay, perfect, okay. Then another Gary Drews and Deb Hadcock again. This time we'll let Gary go first, huh? Gary?
Okay, thank you. So the Tax Increment Finance Project Committee met last Friday, and what we approved was a modification of the original TIF approved for Inland Development. This is adjacent to Reservoir Road in the eastern part of Rapid City. Of the 211 scheduled new single-family housing units, 156 are associated with the future Inland subdivision. In the initial TIF, all future homes were classified as an affordable housing TIF district. However, Inland Development, the division of Skull Construction, only has control of the development of 156 of those homes, and therefore needed to be changed from a statewide TIF district to a local TIF district. The change, which was approved, impacts the calculation of the school levy on all real property within the impacted school district. Schools will still get the dollars that they're scheduled to get, just a different formula that'll be used on it. And then one other thing I'll give a brief report on, because this has just come out. Primarily an effort by the South Dakota Municipal League, but this would have to do with my legislative liaison capacity too. But there is a bill that's going to be, it's in draft form right now. It'll be introduced probably fairly early in the legislative session, and it will call for a simple, straightforward, temporary 1-cent sales tax for quality of life projects. Nothing mandatory about this. In fact, it would have to be approved by 60% of the voters in the municipalities but it can be made available to counties too. But if Pennington County wanted to utilize it countywide, we would need to have an election in each one of the municipalities to give that approval, and it would require 60% approval to do it. So it's another tool for the toolbox is what they're looking at. I think that there's quite a few of the small communities and smaller counties that are really looking at this for some major infrastructure projects. Obviously, as we look at various things, jail, for example, something like that may fit into this type of thing. But it's not all worked out at this point in time. But if you want to find out how it works in some areas, Oklahoma City is the one that originated this back in the 1990s. Gillette, Wyoming uses this process. And I think it's Lafayette, Indiana also uses the process. And what it does essentially is it allows you to, if you have a project or projects that you want included in this, it can operate for a 5-year period of time where you have that 1 cent in addition. But you can't raise more than what your project is anticipated to use. So you can't, if you can raise all the money in a 2-year period of time, you can't run it for 5 years and bank the rest of this money. It would end at the time that you reached whatever that milestone was for your project or projects, because it could be multiple projects in there too. And then it essentially, you have to have a cooling off period of 24 months or 2 years before it could be reinitiated for another project.
Wow. Okay.
So
That's
an idea.
I always want a couple comments on that. That's great news. Do you expect that this could pass? Do we need some participation in this process to beat up our legislators a little bit to get them to think this through? Because right now, the county has no other mechanism. I mean,
That's right.
and obviously, when you see what the property taxes are collected for the county, they don't even pay maybe almost a third of the budget from property taxes. So it's, but yet, especially in our case where we have Rapid Valley and they have a lot of businesses out there and not collecting a sales tax for anything is a real difficult funding mechanism when you have a lot of ag, which is, ag is important to us, we all know that. But to keep the ag viable, we got to keep their property taxes down, but they do spend a lot of money on sales tax when they come to the community, so do you feel like?
I think that it does, Mr. Chair. I think it has a great opportunity. It's going to require a lot of education of legislators as to how this works, but it could be impactful for school districts, counties, and cities.
Perfect, thank you. Commissioner Hadcock.
Sheriff wants to speak first.
You want to speak on that particular item?
On the first one that he talked about.
Yep, then come on up then, and then as long as it doesn't overlap with what Deb's doing, but, yep, perfect.
Same issue.
Thank you. Brian Mueller, Pennington County Sheriff. I just have a couple of comments. I wanted to get this in front of the commission for consideration so we can figure out the path moving forward. Just for informational reasons, initially when they did the TIF that Commissioner Drews was initially talking about out in the valley, it includes a sheriff's office substation. I had Andy Skull reached out to me last week, and they're at the point they're ready for design and development for what that substation is going to look like and exactly where it's going to go. And I would like to have a commissioner involved in the discussion in that project. So not asking for any action today. I think it's going to be timely moving forward here in the near future to be able to help Skull develop that plan as to what that's going to look like moving forward for the future in Pennington County and for the sheriff's office.
Does everybody understand that? I don't understand that.
Hold on a sec.
go
So
ahead.
is that going in Apple Valley or the N one?
Apple Valley.
Okay, were you talking about the N one, weren't you?
Oh, I
Yeah.
apologize.
That's okay.
Fine, that's fine.
That's why I thought you might be confused on the substation, but that is Jerry Durr's district, so I'll let him speak on it first.
Is there anything you want to add? You're on that TIF committee too.
I'll let
right?
him speak on that issue, and then I'll talk about the TIF issue.
Okay.
The TIF on N.
So, does anybody want to have any comment on?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a comment on the substation.
Commissioner Drew.
So, yeah, you and I talked about this. So on the concourse building, when I did my tour a couple weeks ago, I see there's a spot up there for a workstation, a couple offices for the sheriff's office.
Right.
And there's been a conversation as to whether or not, according to the TIF that they'd put in there, whether or not the substation would be, further down in the valley or would it be up at Concourse? And social media reported within the last month in a conversation with Sheriff Mueller that that substation would be done in the TIF. And so is that what you're looking at?
When they initially voted on the TIF, that was part of it, but that process occurred before we purchased Concourse Drive. So what I wanted to bring back in front of the commission is that still the plan we want to do going forward? I think there's not enough room in Concourse Drive you've all toured it to look at a full-blown substation for the sheriff's office fitting in there. So I think it likely makes sense to have this substation as part of the TIF. And I've had several members of the public reach out to me in the last couple of months and feel that they were promised that was part of the TIF process, that there would be a sheriff's office substation out there. And I know that a lot of the residents feel strongly they would still like to see that there. But I believe that's a commission decision moving forward, that you need to have all the information to make the decision. But I believe that the substation should go in Apple Valley as originally discussed.
Mr. Chairman. So if Sheriff Mueller is asking for a point of contact to kind of have communication on this, it is my district, and I would like to be that point.
If you're comfortable with that, if everybody else is.
Yeah, I'm good.
We're all good with that. You just volunteered yourself.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Just a few discussions on that. I think what they were asking for is to have a substation out there. I think the location, depending on where that location is, should be wherever the determination between these guys when they look at Concourse, because the square footage might not work for Concourse, or there might be other solutions. So I'm with you on that, with both Commissioner Durr and the sheriff. On the TIF for Reservoir Road, I was one that voted against it before the meeting, the last TIF meeting. Why I'm having problems with TIFs out in Rapid Valley is their infrastructure problems. And on those infrastructure problems, we're all worried about affordable housing, which I appreciate. But when you're affecting the county with your infrastructure, I asked the question, where is your drainage going? They said they were taking care of the drainage, which is in their area. So why I'm having a problem with TIFs is, okay, if it's affecting, and we're finding that on Concourse, we just learned that the other day, that the hill that's coming down, the drainage is coming into us and causing us some other cash flow, and nothing's really happening up above. We need to figure it out ourselves. Well, unfortunately, the drainage that we've had problems with, and we spoke of this over and over again, that's coming from the north, and this is north as well, this new development, is going to drain into areas that already are having infrastructure or drainage issues. So you don't have the luxury of being a business out there. You are individuals that have to suck up the cost to try to fix where that water is going in your basements and other places. So for me, I told them I'd like to see extra information on your drainage and where that actually goes. Well, he said, his drainage guy goes, well, it goes south. I understand that. But you know that those southern areas are already overloaded out there with water problems. We have, if you talk to the Planning Commission, we have been in discussions with the city on drainage, and maybe moving forward, not just discussions anymore, because they are affecting what's happening in the county, and we do not, and we cannot afford at this point to put money into different reservoirs and things that need to be out there, because the people that are affecting them are the developers. So it shouldn't be on the backs of the taxpayers to fix some of that. Now, has there been problems out there for a while? Yes. Did Andy Skull and the Skull on one of the areas that we had brought up, Travis and I, in his district, which is over by Joe's house. I can't remember what that's called, something ranch, Murphy's Ranch or something. He actually went in and did some extra areas of drainage for us, but what about in between from N to there? So when we're doing TIFs and we're deciding in the county on different areas, I'm not against TIFs. I'm against when it affects other people in the county or even Rapid Valley, that I've been saying from the beginning of time, that we do not have the infrastructure in there for these different developments that are going in order to be able to take care of the people that are already living there. There's been suggestions to annex them in and all kinds of suggestions, but nobody is going to take these entities and take this Rapid Valley area, let alone themselves, because it would cost millions of dollars, because we keep, as a city and the county, keep affecting by putting developments in areas that we don't already have the infrastructure to take care of what we have already. So just food for thought when you're doing TIFs or you're doing anything. What that impacts is huge for us in the county on some of these city TIFs or some of these areas. Not that they aren't good builders, not that I don't respect what they're doing, but they're only taking care of their development. We had this in the city, where the city, they had people develop all over. And then when we came in as city council people, we had so many problems because we had to oversize many areas in the city because of these developments, because they never had the developers never had to pay the oversizing. They only had to do their developments, which started affecting other people in their development areas that have been there for years. So that's all I'm telling you to look at when you're looking at TIFs, or people are telling you that affordable housing is a great thing. There's always different pieces and parts to that that we want to consider when you're looking at those areas. And that's all I said at that meeting as well. But supposedly it went on deaf ears, but it's all good. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hadcock. Is there any other positions on this? I'd just like to ask a question, are they considering any other TIFs or anything like that right now that we need to start putting on our radar or anything, or?
To my knowledge, there's no new TIFs being considered right now, but that can change.
That could change tomorrow, right?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I just didn't know if there was something that you've seen come up or Deb's seen come up that needed some That being said, we'll move on from that item, and those are no action required. Mr. Prime Rib wants to visit. Says something. This guy cooks the best prime rib you've ever tasted.
Thank you for that, Ron. If I may, speaking about TIFs, Brittany and Planning and Zoning and myself have been approached about annexing some property for the Quail Run TIF. I think I've shared some information with you, Ron, on that. Has that been brought up at the TIF committee at all?
Does not.
So
That was the last couple of meetings, anyway.
that is at the Concourse and Elkvale intersection there with Jolly
We
Lane.
visited that, right, okay.
Correct. So they're looking at putting multifamily in there, and that's going to be, I believe, Brittany, I don't know if she's coming out here or not, but they're going to be asking to annex some of the county's right-of-way to make this TIF happen. So Brittany?
Good morning, Commissioners. Brittany Molitor again, Planning Director. So the TIF is requesting to do some improvements, but they want to annex a portion of the right-of-way to Twilight, and then a portion of the right-of-way to Jolly Lane. The issue and the concerns that Joe and I have is that the traffic counts for that development are going to put a significant impact on Twilight. And our intersections at 44, on Jolly and 44 and on Twilight and 44. They had reached out to me yesterday to ask if I would sign an application for a request for an annexation. I told them I did not have that authority, so it's going to be on a future agenda for this board for the request for the annexation.
Chair.
Commissioner Hadcock.
May I ask for the infrastructure, what do we need as a board to be looking at? I mean, we're going to see this on a future agenda, I understand, but what are we looking at that, so they can do their development and we can be taken care of in the county for the impacts of which that's going to happen?
Yeah, so some of the infrastructure that's going to be needed that the traffic impact study calls out is specifically traffic signals at Jolly Lane and Twilight, and then again at Concourse and Twilight. We're kind of doing some research in our office to figure out where the best place for that traffic light is, because those intersections are so close together. Doesn't necessarily make sense to have a traffic signal at both. So does it make sense to put the traffic signal at Jolly Lane and Twilight, because it is a four-legged intersection versus a three-legged intersection? Then you have direct access down to Highway 44 via Jolly Lane, and then turning lanes on Twilight. Right-hand turning lanes, and there's already left-hand turning lane. But then down at Highway 44, as Brittany said, Twilight and 44, that's already a bad intersection. I don't know, I didn't have a chance to look at the traffic impact study in depth. I don't know that it addressed the Twilight and 44 intersection. That's already a bad intersection I have witnessed a car crash here about a month ago myself. So those are the infrastructure stuff that we're going to be looking at from a road aspect. Now Rusty out with Rapid Valley, I don't know what he needs as far as infrastructure for water and sewer.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Drews.
Although I think the information is all good, we don't have this scheduled on our agenda for discussion.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. But I do think, I will get with Joe and we'll schedule something, and it is a concern. I appreciate that. So we're going to move on. Thank you, Joe and Brittany, and there's some good questions that came up, but we'll move on. And we'll be moving on to executive session per SDCL -125-2. And I have one comment. I did add one thing on here, and I'm not sure if it's the December 19, 2023 censure public reprimand of Commissioner Hadcock was added on by me. I'm not sure if it needs to be an executive session matter. It's going to be fairly contentious, and it's going to be fairly blunt to the point, but I'm not sure. It would probably qualify as a executive session matter, but it's been made public. I mean, there was a public reprimand. I mean, they wrote it in the newspapers. I have no problem talking about it on the dais, but I guess I'm looking for direction from the commission here. It's going to be heated. It's going to be contentious. It's going to be whatever. We'll try to keep it under control, but at the same time, I want to bring closure to move forward. And this is something that's been bothering me for quite some time, so.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
maybe it could be something that we could go to executive session and discuss how we're gonna do it.
And then
in
come
the
back
open
out and have
public.
that conversation?
Yeah, I just think that would be,
Okay,
instead of asking us here what our thoughts are, let's do it in executive session, then come out and
okay,
say, this is where we're gonna do it.
okay. Are you comfortable with that, Mr. Durr, or Commissioner Durr?
Yeah, I'm just going to say I believe it is executive session because we're talking about employee matters and performance thereof, and so I think it is an executive session
I knew we
discussion.
had, I think there's some other item on here too for executive session. I'm not positive. I don't know who wouldn't actually know
So
that.
Chair, I appreciate the executive session, but can I read something in for the record? Since
We
this
will, when
is
we
on
come back
the-
out, we'll address this again when we come
Yeah.
back out in public forum. We're not gonna hide this from everybody. We're gonna go in and have a conversation that we can all be blunt with each other. And then we can come out and we can have our public comment at that time. I think that's the most appropriate approach to take at this time.
What I'm asking is it's to request to expunge the censure. And before we go in, I think people should know my thoughts and why it should be.
Well, I think
that
they'll know
discussion.
your thoughts. We'll give you a chance to, I mean, I think that we'll give you a chance when you come out, to,
Yeah.
you know, so when everybody knows your thoughts or Commissioner Durr, you look like you were gonna have a question.
Yeah, I just have a comment about a couple comments, and I'm going to go back to how Mr. Roskinek started off the meeting, about, we can agree to disagree, but let's be cordial with each other and let's represent the taxpayers. So when we start off by saying something's going to be contentious, I would say it doesn't have to be. Let's just have a conversation between us. So.
Okay, perfect.
And I
All right.
appreciate that.
I'm good
You
with
guys want to make the motion? I don't think anyone made a
Motion to go into executive session.
I don't know who the chair is, but I just got it.
Pursuant to both or just one?
that. Okay, thank you.
No,
sir. Oh, okay, I got it.
do we have contractual as
We'll do
well,
this back
Holly?
there.
No, this is not
Okay.
on the agenda.
Okay, it's not on. agenda.
Personnel matters, 1-25-2-1 and contractual, we don't have today. So it's just on personnel matters.
Okay,
Well,
and then,
Motion's
and then
made,
who's the second?
Second.
Thank you.
and then now, any discussion? So, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
same sign. Hearing none. So moved into executive session.
No, so not contractual.
Okay, I'm gonna move to come out of executive session. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are out of executive session. We need a motion to, I guess, would I make that motion to,
Gary should be here in a second.
okay. You want me to make that motion then, or should?
I think Jerry's gonna do it, aren't you, Jerry?
No, you could make a motion.
Pardon?
Okay.
You could make the motion.
Okay.
Hey, Gary, so we're out of executive session now, so I'm going to make a motion, and the motion is going to be that the commission gives direction to the chair and Jerry Durr to reach out to Lisa Marcel for a legal opinion on the Hadcock censure, and also to review the policy for the code of conduct and come back with some direction to the commission.
I'll second that motion.
So we got a first and a second. Do we got any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Hearing none. Motion passes, and I guess we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, and no comments. We are adjourned. Motion carries. Thank you, and thank the public for showing.